So let's start here. We have a podcast for season 4, and we want to discuss all things about the new patch, how we think about the game, what happened, all the, what happened in the season, and so on. Seems like in general, season 4 has been a huge, I had a huge positive reception, and let's see if there's more in detailed topics to talk about here. There's certainly also problems that we have probably identified in the last 2 weeks of blasting. Everyone here has been playing a lot, as far as I know. For the chat, not everyone might know everyone here. I guess the M is the biggest name, but I would like to have a short introduction for everyone here for just a few sentences, who you are and what you do, and then we jump in. So let's start with the M, then Darkside and Chronix.
Sure. I'm just a ginger in Alaska talking about video games. Nothing too special.
Okay. So I am Darkside. I am one of the Maxroll rogue specialists. I help alongside wudijo, Mippy, and Lucky, right? Rogue guys on Maxroll. So, and I run a chill stream at nighttime. So, yeah.
Okay, Chronix.
And yeah, I'm Chronix. I'm also on the Maxroll team writing the Necromancer guides alongside Macro BioBoy, and yeah, also creating general and necromancer content over on YouTube and also streaming on Twitch.
All right, and me, I'm the host of this podcast, wudijo. Hope that at least the people on my stream know me, but for the others, I play a lot of hardcore, especially rogue, and well, yeah, that's what we do here. All right, so the topics for today. I want to keep this to roughly 2 hours for this podcast. And the first and the biggest topic is going to be itemization, which is the big update of the season, I suppose. So we're going to talk about temporals, drops, uniques, everything. Then I want to talk about Helltide. What do you feel about that for a little bit? Then we have the pit, and we have the Tormented Bosses, and to some degree the Stygian stones. Then we want to talk about class balance in general, game balance in general. And then we have open-end discussion for future content, future features, and so on. So this is kind of the roadmap here for the night. So let's start with the itemization, the first big topic. So I don't really have any direct questions prepared for this, just the topic itself. But maybe we start with first impressions. How do you feel? What do you think about the new items? So let's just open the discussion here, I'd say.
Sure, I can get it rolling, I guess. So originally when I saw it in the PTR, because I didn't spend I don't know how much time you guys spend in the PTR, but I didn't spend a lot. I spent a few hours or something into it, tested everything. I was like, okay, I get the general gist of it, and kind of logged out. So my original take when I saw it in there was it looks better, but I was concerned it was too simple. Or I was like, okay, it's just damage, main stat, etc. The point is to make it less complex, but I was almost worried it was almost too simple. But that has since been alleviated. Actually, once I got into the actual game and started playing it, I don't worry about it being too simple anymore. It feels pretty good to have the majority of the items, at least I'm acquiring, have some use. And there's still enough complexity. For instance, right now I need boots that have movement speed, greater affix with armor. And the complexity comes from where the greater affixes are as opposed to what the stats are, basically. So for me, it's been... it's better than I thought it was going to be, even though I thought it looked pretty good in the PTR, is my initial impression.
So, to piggyback off of what DM said, for the most part, I think what they did with the itemization is definitely on the right track. They made it so that it's easy to build any build you want. It's super easy to find gear and get a build rolling. So for those who don't have much time, it's you can kind of just jump in there, get your items and get something rolling. But they also made progression systems for those who want to min-max and, those who want to, make their character as powerful as possible. So you have the tempers and the masterworkings, and getting that perfect character is actually really hard to do. But getting the gear to do what you need in the game is actually really easy. So I think it satisfies both ends of the spectrum. I would like to see more options on weapons though. When they remove attack speed, that was kind of awful. And they didn't replace it with anything else. So everybody's weapons, for the most part, look the same across the board in terms of stats are concerned. So I do hope that they address that and add more things. But for the most part, I'm satisfied.
Oh yeah, sure. I think the satisfaction is definitely way better than going for a triple or even quadruple damage reduction chest and pants all the time. So I think I'm way happier now how it is. But on the other hand, especially in the pinnacle content, that definitely leads to way more attention, which is actually not a bad thing for me. For now, I'm actually sometimes scared to die in hardcore, which is exactly what I want to have. And I'm having a blast. Not only are you having quite a lot of loot handed to you, but you can design it however you want. So you can literally take something that you find on level 10 and make it fit to your build, and you don't have to find an item and hope it is going to fit. And I think that makes it much more enjoyable. Already starting at like level 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever you find the first legendary, right? It's great. I'm having a lot of fun, and you feel pretty strong very early on. I've did the easiest capstone dungeon ever this season. Maybe because of minion necro, yeah, but also the gear was incredible. I was very strong, and that continued throughout the whole progression, I think, and it was a lot of fun to me for sure.
Yeah. If I want to chime in, I really resonate also with what Darkside said here. Like, it's very easy to build a character, and I actually literally just done that like half an hour ago, 1 hour ago, when I was making a new build that was just like based on some idea. I went to the obol vendor with like 2,000 obols, just gambled like 3 pieces of each slot, and I suddenly had a character that I could work with and try something out. So that was kind of cool. And it kind of feels a lot like Diablo 3 these days, where it's like very easy to get a build rolling with like normal legendaries and normal set pieces and stuff. But then like the min-maxing, that's similar to D3, like the ancients, the good rolls, and then, going further and like, augmenting them and all that stuff. It feels like they're kind of moving in the same direction, where it's like you can play any build you want right from the start almost, especially with all these legendaries dropping. Even like drop-only aspects that define certain builds can be found pretty early already. So yeah, this is definitely really cool that everyone can kind of like experience at least a build, from the start to finish. And of course, there's like late game builds that only come online with like certain uniques and these kind of things, and those exist as well. I guess Fractured Winterglass is an example. The Tempest Raw on the Druid is an example. But yeah, overall, it's like much more accessible. While at the same time, it actually gives us something to strive for, and I really love that too. So I think they've really done a very good job with like, making the really good items, something you want but don't need. But at the same time, it's like, if you don't get it, you don't really feel bad. So this is just where I'm at, and I think they did a really good redesign there. So yeah, pretty cool stuff overall. Now the question
glad
is,
that they're doing the.
yeah?
No, go on. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you first. I want to go on to the next topic.
I was just gonna say that I was kind of glad that the gold cost has been reduced for the transmuting in particular. You know what I mean? Where you go from the higher cost to the lower one. That was like, man, that's kind of like, hurting the old piggy bank there quite a bit. And then the 10 mil cost from the highest tier being downgraded too. It's like, okay, that one got cut by like 80%, right? It's what, 2 mil now, if I remember correctly?
Nah, DM, I was taking out loans just to be able to like craft.
Darkside is deep in debt at this point. Never gonna recover.
Yeah, break his knees, yeah.
No. Yeah, it's true. Like the gold economy is actually a topic I had for later, but we can discuss it now as well. So they are already making some adjustments. They have made some adjustments already, and now they're doing another patch on Tuesday to bring down the gold cost of masterworking. But yeah, gold is definitely like the one topic that I hear the most complaints about, or some of the most at least. It's like, I don't have gold, how do I get gold? And then, the enchanting cost is too high, the masterworking is too much. And people don't really do like whispers very much to actually farm this gold, because, well, why do you want to farm whispers when you just get like tons of materials thrown at you to farm Barshan and then farm Duriel anyway? You don't even have to go for the whispers, right? So it's like, do you really want to go for whispers just for some gold? And people don't really do that, I guess. So how do you feel about it?
I have a question for you, Willie, then about
Yeah.
that. Is being broke from gold adds a value to gold in and of itself, right? There's so many gold sinks in the game. Everyone obviously needs gold. How do you feel like, I know most players, in fact, I think all you guys would play solo self-found, right? But do you feel like that adds any weight of importance into trading and interacting with other players? Because I was thinking about this myself, and I realized we get so many boss material mats, like, you're probably going to get the uniques you need literally anyway by the time you get all the boss material mats from leveling and the reputation. So I kind of been going back and forth on this one. We're like, oh, trading's probably better because gold has more value. But then I'm like, but everyone's kind of getting the uniques they need literally anyway. So, where you sit on that?
Well, personally, I really like that gold is scarce, and it's like actually like a meaningful resource. So, like it's like, do I really want to masterwork this item now? I do have the materials, but do I really want to go for it now? It's like a kind of trash item, and do I really want to reset my masterworking like 20 times now to get the right hit on the crit? And I kind of like that it's like somewhat rare to get the right outcome, for example, on this masterworking. And it's not just grind the pit until you have infinite mats and then just reset over and over. We did it on the PTR, and I really didn't like it, actually, because it was just annoying. You did spend so much time in town crafting a thing, and now at least you get to like play the game more, farm more, and then you spend your gold really fast. And I like that a lot more than like the defree system, I guess, where you have like infinite amounts of gold and infinite amount of mats, and you just stand in town like 1 hour rolling each piece of gear. I really hate that. So on that end, I actually kind of like that gold is hard to come by, but it's probably too hard to come by. And there's no direct like path to getting gold very fast. Like you can't really go much out of your way to get a lot of gold besides doing whispers, and they're just not good enough in my book. So I would like to see a buff there perhaps. But otherwise, I kind of like the overall gold scarcity.
So I agree with that. I think honestly, we can probably give more value to something like Nightmare Dungeons right now, because outside of basically leveling your glyphs, you generally don't return there for much of any other reason. Maybe some, rune stones or whatever, but you kind of get them in Helltide as well. So like, but gold being rare for the most part does add some value. But I think the costs were basically tuned for PTR when they gave us free gold for love or getting out or boosting our characters up or whatnot, and they just kind of forgot to tune that down. So I think that's kind of what they're doing now. But I hope it doesn't get to the point where it's like gold is useless at the same time, because you do want to have to make decisions like, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, whispers as really the main source of like grinding gold, it's just kind of rough. Like it'd be nice for Nightmare Dungeons to kind of maybe have a little bit more value in that sense. So we have something else to do or give value back to that in some way.
Yeah, true. I think they kind of don't want you to play that many Nightmare Dungeons later, though. Like it's kind of like a system that you phase out in favor of the pit later, I think. So that at least this is how I imagine this is designed. So maybe they don't want you to go back to Nightmare Dungeons, but it could be nice. It's kind of similar to Whispers, right? It's like harder Whispers, let's say. You can go to Nightmare Dungeons and get a bunch of gold there. It would be nice. There was another option, I guess, instead of Whispers. But maybe Whispers is like the best, and then Nightmares is like the second best or something. So you can at least grind it over and over. With Whispers, you just run out of Whispers at some point.
Yeah, I just don't like replacing systems. You know what I mean? Like we replace one thing for another, and so one piece of content becomes pretty much obsolete, and that's not cool. Sorry, DM, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, you're fine. I was thinking, or you could add one like an additional chest in Helltide or something that's literally a gold chest instead of dropping all the loot and stuff, or like a herbs one. I don't know about you guys. I'm constantly running out bundled herbs. It's like I'm making all the incense and everything because I keep trying Uber Lilith, so I get strapped on bundled herbs, and then when you run around to pick them up, you get like 5 or 6 of them, and I'm like, man, where is an herb? I need a farm, like an island or something in the game that I can farm these damn things.
Yeah, I literally wanted to say, like, we're doing so much Helltide, and I would really love to have the option to choose between the mystery chest, the living steel chest, and maybe also a gold chest. I don't know. Having the decision here, like, okay, maybe you are not a blaster and you're not literally opening every cinder thing. Maybe you're not running permanent profane mind cage, and you have to choose. And then if you can choose for a gold chest, that's kind of nice, because let's be honest, I don't know when the last time was where I was like, oh, a living steel chest, let's open this. I need the 5 living steel. I don't know. My first stash tab is completely overfilling. I'm starting to fill the second one just with materials. So maybe a gold chest would be a good idea. But then again, like, you can't put too much in there, and it's rough. But having the choice is nice. But then again, Helltide already does so much for you right now. You're having Angel Breath, you're having bundled herbs, you have your boss materials, you have gold through the whispers, or the Helltide whispers that are in there as well. I don't know if it's a good thing to give them the gold chests on top. So maybe an alternative like putting more value in the nightmare dungeons would actually be the way. Although I wouldn't be happy to be running nightmare dungeons. It's actually for me currently the worst part of the game, but it's
Agreed.
okay for getting your glyphs up. It's fine, but I'm dreading having to return on my characters and doing that on 21. If you get gold, maybe it's going to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't like Nightmare Dungeons, so me personally don't want to go back into them. Although I would be willing to do content I don't like if the rewards are there. I mean, we do that in MMOs and stuff anyway. So I was thinking they could bring back vaults, right? This ain't my original idea. People have mentioned this already. Can't they have Nightmare Dungeons with a vault modifier? I mean, that's kind of what vaults already were, right? You get to the end, you get a bunch of gold, fits the theme of a vault, brings back an old mechanic. I know a lot of people didn't like the trap mechanics. But if it's not the only thing you're doing, it's like you just need gold, run a vault, get 10 million gold. Okay, I'm good on gold for, the next couple hours, do another one later.
Yeah, that would be a really cool idea and would very much fit into the whole theme of getting gold. So I like the idea as well. If they bring back vaults, that could be a solution for the gold as well. If you do like once every few hours and it's like, okay, like a run here and there. Kind of like replacing a whisper run or something. Would be nice. Like one thing that I see in chat is also that people mention you can just sell items to other players and get gold that way.
Yeah.
Like my opinion on that is, I mean, first of all, someone else has to grind that gold in. So the problem still persists, you just shift it to someone else. And the second is also that like not many people really want to trade, right? There is an economy and people are trading, but not many people want to engage with that and go to the website and list an item, and it's kind of clunky in the game as well. So that's kind of a problem there, I think. But sorry, I was cutting off Dark Side, I think.
No, you're fine. Just like, people who were like selling gear early, like day 2, day 3 for like, 500 million gold. You have to kind of think, where did the person who has 500 million gold get it from, right? So like that early, like how do you get that much gold that early? So obviously, like when you add these things or incentives to be able to get more things like that, you introduce more incentives for bodying, and then bodying, tends to ruin the economy and do other things. So I can see Blizzard trying to do like a balance act of, not making things too rewarding in that sense, but at the same time, you don't want to hurt the player base who is just trying to play the game regularly, right? So, but I would love like an in-game trading system, like a marketplace or auction house, whatever. I personally hate going into third-party sites to sell anything. I can't stand it.
Agreed.
Yeah. On hardcore, you can barely even do any trades anyway. Like being a hardcore player, like I did actually sell like 2 pretty valuable items, but for like maybe 10% of the price I would get on softcore, because there's just like no people to buy it, no people that has gold. There's a lot less botting, a lot less RMT. Like that is definitely also a huge problem for. Huh?
The bots die in hardcore.
The
so
bots die in hardcore. Yeah, exactly.
They can't farm to go.
It's true, man. Like it's rough. Like people tell me, man, you're selling it for that. It should have been like billions, and it's like, yeah, and who's gonna give me billions?
That's what it was in D3 though. Like D3 vanilla. Remember with the auction house, like because there was no like cheat deaths at the time. So like in hardcore D3, like the auction house was way more fairly priced because the botters just kept dying. So there wasn't much gear in the auction house to buy.
So you're saying the solution is just to delete softcore? Then Woody and I finally have an economy going, probably. Now my idea was I was hoping like boss carry thing would be a thing, and I could sell my boss killing fun for other people, but I don't know. Nobody. Everyone either does them on their own or leaves the Stygian stones in the stash and sells those instead, and I'm the one buying them. So I don't know. It's whatever happens. I keep spending the gold that I earn. So I don't know where it keeps going.
Today I learned you can actually trade the Stygian stones. Those have got to be the most valuable item in the game, then, right? I mean, they are. Am I the only one starving for these things? I have one of them, and Lord knows when the next one's going to show up.
No, you're not the only one, man. They don't drop.
Rough. But I don't know about you guys, but on softcore or on hardcore, I feel like I'm printing uber uniques. It's insane. How long is the season now? 12 days or something? I have easily found one each day now. Crazy. The value that you get with the Stygian stones, I think it's immense. I'm personally a little bit scared if they are buffing the drop rate though. We're kind of getting a topic from later, but now we're on it there. I don't know. I'm a bit scared.
Now we can talk about
I mean,
uniques
it's
as well.
Kind of crazy the amount of not only the uniques but also the uber uniques I'm printing with the Stygian stones. It's crazy. I feel like it's okay now, but I'm scared if what's going to happen if you are increasing the drop chance. But obviously you want to cater to the casual audience a little bit more, because probably a lot of people are starving for them way more than us probably playing the game for so much time. But then again, the top end is going to go crazy.
Well, the way I was looking at this is, haven't they kind of moved the goalpost in on Uber Uniques? Because before they dropped like max, they didn't drop max row. Now they drop max row, but now it's you can greater affix these too. So it's like the Uber Uniques are easier to get, but like the Uber, Uniques are like now kind of hard. You have to hit it with the greater affix if you really want that full Uber Unique. I figure
if you really want an indestructible grandfather, man, you really the mega indestructible grandfather, yes. But yeah, uniques is a good topic in general. So it's definitely noticeable how a lot more people are getting Uber uniques now, thanks to the Stygian stones and thanks to the Tormented Bosses. And I mean, Cornix with his 1% speech, like 1 Uber a day, is a bit optimistic. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely noticeable that people are getting more. And it's also in great part thanks to the Tormented Bosses, I guess, that people are doing, or, you know, they go to a rota, get carried and whatever, right? And previously people like maybe farmed up their few Uber like Durials, and then, you know, they did like a rotation, they got nothing, and that was it. And now you just get like so much more mats vomited at you from every corner in the game, right? You just level up a character and you have like 20 bosses ready to blast without really trying, right? So it's not like you have to go out of your way. Like compared to last season, for example, I never felt like I was actively farming for boss materials this time. Like last season, I spent 100 hours, you know, doing Whispers, doing Helltide, specifically hunting down the Living Steel and the Vashan mats, and then doing Durials. And now I feel like I'm just playing the game, and I just get boss mats. You know, I'm doing Helltides, you know, also to level up, also get my Iron Wolves. And, you know, the Living Steel is just the stuff that drops on the side at this point, right? We talked about the Living Steel chest, no one really cares. And that's really cool, you know? I like that we have, like, so many mats available, and it might be too much. Maybe I can at least, like, increase the stack size or something, right? But, yeah, it's nice because it doesn't feel like a chore at all compared to the previous seasons.
Sure, I've just finished leveling a rogue, just hit 100. I regret I haven't emptied the first stash tabs. Could have tracked how much I found, but it's crazy. I don't have to go out of my way to do Whisper for Vashan. I don't have to go out of my way to get Living Steel. It's just there, right? It's a great feeling. I'm having a blast when it comes to that. And also, I like when we're talking about uniques, I like the stuff from the Iron Wolf board that you get the sacreds really early on, the uniques. Because you go like, oh, what am I gonna get? What am I gonna get? You know, and then you get like Ring of Sacrilegious Soul, which is like great in an early game on the Necro, the auto cast ring. Like it's such a great quality of life, and I don't know. I think that was also a very good idea there. Just making them more available is feels great to me.
That's how I got my Tempest Roar.
I guess I don't really feel
much
about
Tempest
it,
Roar.
honestly, because like as a rogue, I mean, I look at a unique and it's just another salvage material for the most part. It's just like, oh man, more materials, yeah, you know. But I guess, you know, it's really just the fact that the itemization, like the legendaries and rares, are the ones that got, you know, the rework, and uniques kind of didn't, right? So like uniques are kind of more so on the back burner of things for builds that you used to be able to use them in. So I'm sure probably maybe in season 5 they'll kind of, you know, look at that and be like, how can we make these more useful? But like on a rogue, like literally every single unique outside of like the Shaco seems to have like zero value for me right now. So I wish I had that feeling where it's like, oh, I found a unique, you know, but no, it's just more.
I mean, to be fair, like when you find like a sacred unique, it's like, you know, you find a condemnation, or you find like a sacred Tibble as well. Like, you know, at that point, you don't really have like good enough stuff. You know, even penitent greaves, like these kind of things. Yeah, you don't use them later, But it's really nice to get early game. Like if you get a sacred one of these at level 50 or something, you're gonna run with it for a while. You know, that's kind of the cool part, I guess, that we were mentioning here. And yeah, you're gonna replace it later. But I do agree, like a lot of people agree, I guess, that something has to be done with uniques at some point. They can just like restart them and like update them all, or they can make like some new system to give them an upgrade path, you know, somewhere in the direction of tempering. I don't think that they should do the same, like they just allow tempers or something. I think that would be kind of a mistake. But, you know, something else that is like a similar like power increase or so to like bring uniques back on the table. But I honestly really like that our builds have fewer uniques this time around compared to last season. I feel like last season and before that, it was always like, okay, every build has like, I don't know, a Shaco or maybe a Godslayer or a Tuskhelm. And then you have like Tybalt's Will in every build. And then you have like, you know, if you have it like a Starless, and, you know, just throw everything in there that you got, right? And every build was just like the same, with like the same 6 or 7 unique items. And it was like way too much, I think. They were just clearly better than other items. And I didn't like that at all. So they need to like balance it more to the point where, okay, you really want to use a certain unique that really fits into your build, but not much more than that. And I think that is much better than what we had in the past.
I think
Agreed.
uniques sitting in the position where it fundamentally changes the way a skill works is like perfect for what they're supposed to do. You know, like the Fracture Winter Glass or the Boulder Stone one, Dolmen Stone or whatever it's called, like Scoundrel's Kiss. You know, stuff that fundamentally changes what the ability does, I think is a pretty good placement for him.
Yeah, I agree. Or they give like some really unique effects or some really unique, like, you know, build around effects, right? Like imagine like Frostburn,
Yeah.
right? Frostburn was actually a unique effect almost, right? Freeze an enemy. And now Frostburn is literally 1 tempered stat on any of your armor pieces, right? So it's like, you know, some of them have kind of shifted away from any kind of usability, but it was a unique thing, and now it's just everyone has it. But I do agree, like, you know, that these very build defining items are much cooler to have, even if they're like, you know, not that many in the build.
Right, like before we were using them mainly for their multipliers because they were so strong, right? Most of those. And now they're really just, oh, I need them to make my build work. I think that's a way better place than what we had before, where they just end up in literally every build because Tybalt's Will is just too hard to pass up, right? So the direction, I kind of like that, to be honest, to what it was. Slap it on there for the multi, and now Tempest Draw and so on and so forth. You need those to actually be able to play the game. And now with the availability being increased, it feels like a much better game to me. Sure.
Yeah, but let's go back to the topic of the bosses again. Like we talked a little bit about the Stygian Stones and the Tormented Bosses. Let's just pull that up here for earlier topics. So, about the Tormented Bosses, how do you feel about fighting them, doing the rotas for them? And do you think this was like a good move, introducing those bosses with like the big loot pinata that you get at the end? And like, do you enjoy that? Like, how are the drop rates for you? Like, what do you think about that?
Who wants to go first?
I'll just go ahead.
All right. Well, I actually thought Uber Andario was like one of the coolest boss fights ever, dude. I actually really liked it. I thought, hey, we're finally getting mechanics. Like I had an issue with some of the other ones before where I feel like it's just a tank and spank, where it's just here's a dude, punch him in the head, he falls over, right? But then Andario was like, okay, they're starting to get some mechanics in here. You got to go, you got to hit the little things. They have suppression shields on them, it rotates and all that. So, you know, I'm starting to like the direction they're going. They're feeling more like you have to actually kind of know what's going on. So for the most part, I'm liking that. Also, like I think this is an Other change, but I've been redoing trying to beat Uber Lilith on the Druid, the Were-Nalo Druid, and the DPS is pretty dog shit. So I actually have to like play the game. And while I'm fighting her, the way that they do the ramping of the stacks is it feels so much better because it's like by the time I get into phase 2, it's like, oh, I got 1 stack or I got 2 stack and I fucked up or whatever. So it actually feels kind of like a mechanic. I don't know. I'm liking bosses probably the best in season 4 because I kind of didn't like them previously. So they feel significantly better for me at least. And in terms of like the loot pinata, the whole bunch of loot, I couldn't answer that one because I don't have a lot of stones. They never drop. And I wasted like 3 of them on the Ice Beast, or 3 sets of them on the Ice Beast before I realized it was bugged, and the Torment stat was ramping
Oh.
over and over and over again. And then I rage quit,
Uh,
and I went and played hardcore, and then I have to log back in and farm stones again. So
Anyone
Yeah,
else?
I like bossing. I don't know. For me, the best activity in an ARPG by far, especially on hardcore, there's nothing better than bossing in hardcore for me. So I'm a huge fiend when it comes to that. Previously, I just refreshed and did the PoE Ubers one more time just to, I don't know, be able to compare it a little bit better. And I gotta be honest, the stacking debuff mechanic is a great idea. Like, it's just that, let's say 4 of those Ubers we currently have are way easier than the other 3, basically. And I'm saying like Andariel is harder, Uber Lilith is definitely harder, and Beast in the Ice, especially for classes that don't have a movement ability, it's kind of rough. And the other 4 are still like a pushover. Feels like a pushover. So there's kind of like a big discrepancy between between the 7, sorry. And I don't know, but the harder 3 are insane. I'm having a blast doing them. And yeah, the loot, as I said before, might be a little bit too much, but then again, Woody had it right with me, probably the 1%er speech here, so maybe it's fine after all. Yeah.
Nah, but I mean, I actually enjoy fighting the tormented bosses kind of thing. I mean, I like fighting mechanics and like having to learn the mechanics and dodge them all, and see if I can just not get hit, etc. I think these Stygian stones are absolutely too rare because I like to do them more often. But I think is a step in the right direction in terms of giving something for the players who really want the additional challenge, and then still leaving the regular versions there for those who would rather just do the farming aspect of things. So having that option, I think, is actually pretty cool. Some tuning obviously needs to be done for all the bosses, but I think it is a step in the right direction for the game as a whole.
I just, you reminded me, Dai, I had a lot of people really struggle with FOMO because they didn't want to lose their normal bossing materials because they didn't have enough Stygian stones, because you get the 3 for you invest 3 times the materials and get 5 times the loot. So people wouldn't boss at all to save the materials to then go and do the Stygian stuff. So that's kind of like counterintuitive as well, right? You kind of want to have people to go and do the bosses, and they don't do the bosses because they save up for the Uber bosses with the Stygian stones. That's also one thing where I think might need a little bit of work. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
I mean, a
I
stone
feel like
income.
I'll go on with you.
No, I was just asking, like, the stone income, or what is it about now?
Yeah, I mean, you have people that want to do, for example, Uber Grégoire, but
Yes.
it doesn't make that much sense to go and do normal Grégoire, and they won't go do normal Grégoire because they don't have the stones. They would rather save it up and do easier
Yes.
Tormented Boss to get the increased value through the Stygian stones. But now they don't boss at all because they don't want to waste their living steel, for example.
DM wanted to say something there.
I was just gonna say, it feels like a stepping stone to me. Like, I don't really feel too de-incentivized to wait, because I feel like I kind of, in order to do the Ubers, I would want the things that I need to acquire to do the Ubers. So for me, for instance, to give you an example, I played Druid and I was doing the Werenado, and I wanted Tempest Roar. Well, if it wasn't bug, then I would have needed to do the stepping stone of doing the normal one to try to get the unique that completes my build and then do the Uber. So for me, it felt fine to have the option. I actually kind of like doing them earlier. Like, Varshan's not a level 100 boss or anything. So the ability to kind of go in and get some of your uniques earlier felt fine to me. Though I will admit, I did kind of feel the crunch you're talking about, where it's like, hey, maybe I should not waste my materials. But then when you realize stones are like so rare, I feel like I've never been in a situation where I had the stones but not the other boss material mats. So for that reason,
That's a good point.
I don't really feel that pressure too much.
Yeah, from my perspective, it's also like, with the stones being as rare as they are, it's not really a problem. Even with like some of the Tormented bosses, like, you know, you do Tormented Grégoire and then he doesn't even drop like at least 3 of the shards. So to summon Duriel, he only drops 1. which is, I'm not sure if that's intended even. It seems kind of weird. Like you pay triple the cost and the stones, and then you get one shard back anyway. Like you could have just gotten more shards running them one back to back or something. But the good thing about the Tormented Bosses, and the best thing I think, is that they're completely optional, right? There's no reason to do Tormented Bosses outside of like getting your uniques more efficiently if you can kill them fast. Like there's no advantage really. Okay, your boss material economy is a bit better, I guess, outside of like, you know, doing Tormented Grimoire, but let's say Tormented Duriels, they have like a better economy. You only pay 3 times, you get 5 times. Sure, right? But it's not like a massive increase in the efficiency. And no one really has to do them besides like the one spark that you get for like the first kill or so, and you can get it at any point from a carry or whatever, or even like anyone can take probably down one of the bosses with like almost any build. If you take the easiest one, you know, if you do like a Duriel, it's like a pretty easy fight. Then, you know, at some point you're gonna get there, right? If you really want to, you can get there, and you can take him down, and you have infinite attempts on softcore. So at that point, yeah, it's just a spark anyway. But yeah, it's like nice that they're optional, but they give you like a challenge to go for. And personally, I also like the idea of like just like completing a build or completing a character and just like maybe go and take down some of the Tormented Bosses at the end, just for fun, you know? Like if I had more materials or more stones available, I would actually like to do that, you know? If I don't need any more loot, I'd just like to go and do it for the fun of it, because I actually find encounters now, and you don't just go in and you bonk them and that's it. So that's how I see it. Anyone else want to say something about the bosses? No?
Ideally more. Even
More?
more. That would be great.
Even more bosses.
Even
more bosses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
I'm having so much fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. Like they can definitely add more bosses, right? So if they add another boss, like imagine them bring back like a level 200 Malphas or something, right? Like they bring back the balls for the gold, and they also have like a Malphas there. Let's ignore the 4, you know, the 4 parts where you have to go in and collect the thing, and you just run in and do a Malphas. I mean, that would be badass. You know, I really like the Malphas fight. And if they bring him back, for example, or, you know, whatever new boss they're making next season, right? And they can always just extend it and like add more of the like, new drops to that new boss or whatever, right? So yeah, why not? That'll be
Surprised that one actually didn't get brought back. Now that you bring it up, I kind of forgot about him. But didn't every other additional boss from a season of Kank make him back? We had Lord Zir came back, Varshan came back, so he's the only one that's not back yet, right?
There you go. You just revealed the mid-season update, DM.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. So,
oops, leak.
Uber Malphas.
Yes. One thing I don't like about the whole boss system right now is also that Andariel and Duri have the same loot table. I feel like some of the loot tables are kind of bloated. Like if you especially look at like Lord Seer or something, like everyone is moaning, like, man, I can't get my rapid fire ring, I can't get my fractured winter glass. Like blood is already hard to come by in the first place. And then Lord Seer has like 10 items per class. Like, why don't it just like take like, I don't know, 2 items from Seer, 1 from each other boss, put it on Andariel's, and you actually have like, you know, a reason to go farm her instead of Duriel, for example. So that would be kind of nice, I think. So I don't really see the reason to overlap them.
Yeah, fully
I agree with that.
But yeah.
And also random point here, but Dioxide, I love your shirt, dude. That's a pretty sick shirt.
Oh,
is he frozen?
He froze for me. Oh yeah.
I was like, man, this man takes a compliment stone cold over here. Like, I know it's a good shirt.
He's frozen. Oh no.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense now.
I guess I like on my stream I'm twice now. I'm Dioxide now as well. Uh-oh. Okay.
Perfect timing.
Well, let's hope he comes back. Anyway, we can probably move on from the stone topic. Or maybe like one last question about this, like what would be the ideal Stygian stone drop rates? Everyone's complaining about them, but how much more would you like to see, for example? Or do you think it's just fine how it is?
Scale the drop rate with the pit. Like the higher pit you go, the more common they are. And it's pretty much that simple, right?
100% agree, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, but I mean, how many stones should it drop compared to now? Let's say in a pit 100 or something. You know, something that is still on the higher end.
I guess the question then becomes one of, should you get 1 every run? Is your question, right? Because you're asking like, how many should we get? So if you're asking for multiple, like the percentage, if it's 30%, but you get 3 of them, it basically averages to 1 a run. So I guess it depends upon how many average per run, 1 or less, or 1 or more. At what point?
Did you make like I did a little bit of math behind it, and I didn't do that many pit runs. For me, it's like 1 stone every 50 pits, kinda. That's what it comes down to. And those are like 61 plus, right? All of them. So that's a bit much, or not enough, rather. Maybe 1 in 25 or so. That's double already, and I already said I'm scared of doubling it, right? But yeah, maybe 1 in 30, something like that. 1 in 40, if 1 in 50 is correct, right? That's like some math that I did, noting it down when some of them dropped, and that's basically what it came down to.
Yeah, I kind of have a similar impression about the drop rates. I didn't like keep track of it, but it definitely feels like something 1 in 50 or so. And I think that's too little. Like, I agree, it would be nice to scale it up. Let's say they start dropping at 61, which is like kind of like okay difficulty level that kind of like, makes you able to fight those bosses in first place. And in the future, we're also not going to have the Iron Walls board that gives you like free stones, right? Like most people have stones simply because they get it from the Iron Walls or because they got it from the season journey. And they never really got anything from the pit. Maybe like a handful or something after grinding it out for a while, right? And that's just too little. It's just like, it doesn't even seem like such a major problem to many people right now because they just have a supply from the start. But if you don't get that supply, in the next season theme, then what are you gonna do, right? So I feel like they have to do something about the stones because I don't really like. I found like 500 of these normal bosses, like normal Grigar, normal Varshan. It's a kind of, it feels like season 3 all over again in that sense. Like I have to farm like 100, 200, 300 Duriels, like because I can't do the Tormented. I would really like to do the Tormented, and I don't think it would be so overpowered to let me do the Tormented as much as I want to when I have the stones. Like, I don't really want to fight normal Duriel, I just one-shot him every single time, and it feels like this whole like boss rework, as cool as they are, I just barely get to do them, so I'm back in season 3 again, farming normal Duriel and one-shotting him all day long until I get my Shaco, which by the way still hasn't dropped. I have to craft one, but that's another topic. So I farmed almost as many bosses as I did last season anyway, because I just didn't have the stones, even in rotations. So
I think we would all probably agree they're too few. Like I don't think there's anybody I've seen that argues they're at an okay drop rate. So I kind of feel like maybe we attach them to goblins, can drop them somewhere too. Except, I mean, I guess we could throw them in the pit, but my issue is if we throw them in the pit and then the in-game with the, I'm talking like the ultra in-game min-max is going to be what, farming greater affix uber uniques, probably, right? I mean, that's going to be the thing that you're eventually going to run into. So if you do that, then you're opening yourself up to the loop of eventually getting pissed off because you're having to go back to the pit to farm the stones, etc. I feel like this solution to the stones is they're kind of like only in the pit. Do they drop anywhere else that I'm not aware of? So maybe slot them into, you get one rarely in other activities, so you kind of get a mix of them. I get a little scared when we only have one place to do anything. Then we run into like the glyph experience in Nightmare Dungeon Prom, where it's like, no, I gotta go do this thing to get the glyph experience, and then it just kind of becomes content you don't want to do anymore.
It's
I mean,
also
we could
world
probably make
bosses,
the
right?
you say world bosses. Maybe we could probably do like if they can make legions kind of like have a small chance to drop Stygian stones, just like Scatter Prisms do there too as well. I mean, that'd be a reason to kind of like jump out and be like, hey, let's do this legion real quick.
Only thing I'm scared about when we do this is then you are basically back to daily in World of Warcraft, where you force the casual player to be ready at that exact time, make room for that specific activity, even if they might not want to do it, because everyone obviously wants to go and do the Tormented Ubers and needs the Stygian stones. We're back to daily quests almost, and
Isn't that kind of where we are though?
Dangerous.
Yeah, we're kind of like that with world bosses, right?
Yeah. For Scarab Prisms and Stones, right? With world bosses, aren't those like the two most gated things?
Well, I think that the world bosses are fine. Like the world bosses are really nice to do, but I never feel like obliged to like, okay, I have to log in now, I have to get that world boss or else, right? I think like for me to go out of my way, like in my day, whenever I'm not actually blasting 14 hours, like to log in again and do a world boss, I don't really feel like I should be doing that. I have to do that. It's like, okay, world boss is coming up, I'm gonna go do it, but I'm not gonna go to my PC to do a world boss. You know what I'm saying? So I think they're
True.
just fine, actually. And being as rare as they are, I think this is okay. And they're also buffing, like, for example, the scatter prism drop rates and these kind of things. So yeah, the stone story from Legions would be an interesting idea. I think Legions definitely need a buff in general. They're just kind of like there and whatever. But yeah, I think like Stygian stone storing from the pit makes the most sense because they have like this high end, difficulty, right? Similar to the bosses. So it makes the most sense to just mostly ramp it up a bit with the higher pit tiers. And maybe the scaling is just not really there. Maybe they kind of got it wrong with like how many, how much they expected us to farm the pit, for example. Like, I don't think that anyone, okay, maybe some crazy guy is gonna go for it, but multiple greater affix, uber shakos or something, that is not happening. So I don't think anyone wants to kill the bosses that much to really go for that. I guess technically this is like the last way to optimize your setup once you have like your perfect gear, 3 out of 3 everywhere. And then you can also go for the greater affix, shako or something. But this is like a level of try hard that I don't see anyone doing that I know, at least. So
I know you though, Woody. So I'm
No.
pretty sure you're gonna
No,
go
I'm not-
for it.
I'm
You
not-
telling me
I'm not even trying to get a greater affix on an Uber unique or something, like you get it or you don't, So
one of these guys in your chat actually has a pretty good idea, Woody, that says he thinks the Stygians should cost 2,500 oboes. Like, what do you think about that idea? You save up a bunch of those things, and then you can buy a stone. That's kind of
I
a
like
cool
that,
idea,
actually.
right? Yeah, I saw you come.
I had a similar in my chat right now where they say you can sacrifice boss materials to get a Stygian stone, maybe some type of conversion seems like a good idea. I don't know.
yeah, that would probably make some more sense. Like the one problem I see with the obols is that it becomes very, very much like Diablo 3 really fast if you just kind of like put stuff like this on obols. Like we have Kadala for every item in the game in D3, and now we have obols, and obols are already like very impactful with like how you just get them passively now. And now if you also put like other stuff on obols, then you kind of remove the reason to go and do certain things in the game. And I don't like that. I think it's actually a good idea that there's variety and a purpose to a lot of different things. If you just get everything from obols, and eventually, there's gonna be other things that are gonna be from obols, right? Other boss mods or other whatever, right? Maybe you can buy Masterworking mods with obols and whatnot, right? And it's kind of like a slippery slope here, I think, where you just like try to optimize around the most obols per hour, and that gets you everything most efficiently. And I don't like that idea at all. That's just my opinion.
I'm definitely scared of just doing that one thing because it gives you everything in the game. That's definitely something that needs to be avoided. I think that's
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like
makes-
the variety of activities that we do right now is actually fairly well balanced, You do a bunch of Diamond Dungeons leveling up, then you're done with your glyphs. You do a bunch of Hell Tides leveling up, then you're done with your Iron Wolf. You do a bunch of Whispers, maybe get a few more Shanmas and a bunch of gold. And it kind of like fits in, and I do this here, I do this there. Whenever I see some good Whispers, I go there. Whenever I see a World Boss, I go there. And then I farm some pits in between. And it feels like a nice variety, like a really good loop. And this would kind of lead to the point where everything just comes from the pit at the end. This is going to be like, eventually, everyone is going to be in the pit. Eventually, that's like in Diablo 3, everyone is going to be in Greater Rifts 95% of the time. So this is kind of what I fear here, if you do such a change with like, buy boss mods or obols, for example.
So I didn't play D3 as long as you guys, but I played it on launch and I played it through Reaper of Souls, and then the last 10 seasons I haven't really dipped my head in. But isn't it at the end of D3 people like it? Am I mistaken? That like currently in its state, people consider it to be like in a decent state, right?
Yeah, the people that kept playing, they definitely like it, yeah. So it has like its own player base and people come back every season. But it's still like, there are some things in Diablo 3 that I do not want to see repeated in Diablo 4. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so if Stygian stones, so if you guys had to come up with your solution for it, what do you think the solution is? Just crank up the rate in the pit, keep it exactly like it is, don't add them into other positions in the game? Do you think that them being rare is okay? I mean, where do you actually sit on the subject then? If we had to come up with the solution, where do you add the stones in?
Yeah, personally, I think just like, scale it slightly of pit level, starting at 61, so that, you just get more of them. And, let's say by pit 100, maybe end the scaling. And let's say in pit 100, I don't know, it would be like a 1 in 10 or something, let's say, so you get them regularly.
It's still a lot of runs. I feel like that's a lot of runs.
You have
I
to
mean,
do
I
a
like
lot of
the
runs for
idea
your
of just, like-
masterworking. Sorry.
I like the idea of being able to put it in like different parts of content, like I said, like legions or even nightmare dungeons or something like that, like events in nightmare dungeons or something. I mean, something that gives you kind of more of where you can do or farm a place you may want to farm and be able to gain multiple things rather than just being farming one thing and it's only good at one thing, right? Because that gives you a reason to be like, well, I enjoy this activity, but this activity isn't very rewarding because it only does one thing, right? So being able to have even if it's like a small chance to drop in other places, would be kind of nice because I might happen to like to do that activity, as well. So that's kind of where I would kind of push towards. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. I kind of like I randomly got one of these. Like when I kill a goblin and get boss mad, I'm like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely great. I'm with Woody here for sure. Like I like being rewarded for doing the most challenging content in the game. But I'm just also scared of if you say 61 plus, I don't even know how many people reach reliably. I know like we obviously all do that, but thinking about the people that are basically not watching the stream right now, do they really reach 61? I'm not sure.
Well,
Softcore probably, I would think. I
and-
don't think
and
61's
I
like
don't know.
too crazy, you think?
I also don't have a feeling on it. Like, do they reach 61? Am
Yeah,
I
that's-
completely
Well,
off here? Do they blast
certainly a lot of
61s?
people
I'm
that
not
don't,
sure.
I think. Yeah, and
yeah, I
the
mean,
thi-
honestly, me, it is a Saturday. No, it's a Sunday. So people who touch grass are out there grass touching. And apparently,
Holiday weekend, brother.
obviously, that is not us right now.
Besides the people here, but I mean, the
I'm
pit is
just
definitely
scared for that,
hard, right? The pit is hard, and for people that have no clue how to make a build, that don't even look up builds or whatever, like they're not necessarily gonna get to 61. I mean, we could get to 61 with any build we want, but not everyone can do that with whatever build they conjured up. So yeah, there's certainly people that get stuck earlier, or at least it's like hard enough. Maybe they do like their 8 minutes pit 61 clear or something, right? But I mean, imagine someone like that farming like stones, right? So that's not happening, basically, like at all. And on the other hand, you have to ask the question, like, does it matter? Like, do those people need the stones, right? Do they actually want to farm, 50 Tormented Durials in a season to get
They're
an
not
Uber?
going to. No, they're not. You're right on the money with that. Like, but plus you mentioned the solution to that earlier, which is they're getting the stones just from the season journey and stuff. Like, I'm more casual than probably anyone else on this call, right? And me, I only ran out of stones after I used the Reputation cash system, and the Iron Wolves one. Once I ran out of those, I was like, oh, well, okay. And I did like one more boss of it. It's like, if I ever get the stones, I guess I'll do another one. But I'm not out there like actively trying to acquire the stones. Because for me, it's like this fairy dust that just doesn't exist in the game. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of doing the other things. And the Uber bosses basically don't exist for me because I just can't do them. So I think that most people will hit that. It'll be like aspirational content. They'll be like, I've got 10 stones. They'll probably die a few times to them, or like the Ice Beast, you die 4 times and you get locked out. You can't do it literally anyway. So you're like, oh, well, there goes those stones. And they'll try a few of them. They'll either not be able to beat it, or they'll get Buddy to help them or something like that. And then they'll just be like, I did it. And then they'll just go back to farming like the normal ones. Like, I think for the majority of the players, that's going to be it. Or they try and they fail, and then they just like don't bother doing it again. So acquiring the stones, I feel like helps those people out too. Because if those players convert from like normal players to people that, oh, I really like the game, I'm going to continue playing it more. Eventually, they're going to need the stones also, but they're not converting to like these omega grinders. They're going to sit there for 16 hours a day. They just playing it over the months that the season's out, and they're slowly getting, eventually they're going to hit that content. Like, I think if someone plays the game for enough hours, they're going to hit the point where they want to try those bosses. Because the game might, the Uber bosses might be harder than something we've ever had, but I don't feel like it's too hard. Like I feel like even people who sit on the couch with a controller can still figure out a build if they play the game for enough hours. So eventually, if Arshan's like not even level 100, they're gonna kill those bosses. The stats are inflated more than ever. Most people are gonna be able to, like you were saying, be able to kill Duriel and all that without even like a normal build, literally anyway. Eventually, they're going to hit a point in which they're gonna want to try that content. I feel like. Maybe not most people, but a lot of people, I think, are actually going to want to try it.
It's a fair point. Like, at some point, it should still be like something to aspire to, right? Even if not everyone can do it, or not even tries, but at least it gives something like of a target, right? And there might be a lot of people this season that just they play the game and they were like way more casual, and maybe now they like it and they play more, and maybe they don't even take down any of those bosses, but maybe they will try, and then maybe next season they're like, oh man, next season I'm gonna make a better build. I'm gonna do Duriel this time, and I'm gonna do a Tormented Grimoire, and maybe don't take down Beast in the Eyes, and then they're like, oh man, season 6, I'm gonna take down the Beast as well, or something like that, right? So it doesn't have to be like an Ultra Blaster to do that, and that's kind of cool. So it gives you like a challenge. It's not like mega hard, but it's also not something that you can just walk in and do it, right? Without any effort. So that's really,
like,
really a good spot.
To continue my rant mildly, I feel like losing to a boss is actually a really cool experience. Like this is something I learned in other games, is I would fight a boss that like I'm not good enough skilled wise to beat. And then going and like getting my ass handed to me was a very motivating experience in these types of games. Even in this game, dude, I've been trying to kill Uber Lilith for like 3 days straight. And I like that. I like the fact that there's something that I have to get good to achieve. And so I that's why I like the Uber bosses this season. It gives those players like a reason to get their ass kicked.
But the thing is too, though, is that like I almost see more of people doing carries than anything else. So like I see what you're saying in terms of like a motivational type thing, but because it's so easy to kind of, I'm gonna say easy to group up, but it's kind of easy to kind of jump on a stream and if you're having a tough time, it's like, hey, can you kill this boss for me type thing. Like it's easy to kind of just skip that whole meaningful idea of I killed the boss and like learn the mechanics type thing. Like so the game doesn't really force you to have to really do that. Like I'll put it this way, like let's say if you kill like Torment boss, by yourself solo or something like that, and then you got the spark or something, or you killed Lilith for the first time, then you got the spark and you did a solo. But you can get the spark if someone carries you to kill it, right? So like there's little incentive to actually learn the boss fight when I can just go to like, let's say, I don't know, Rob stream, right? And just kind of get in the rotations of getting my free spark, right? So like you're not really forced to have to do that. But I guess that's kind of drawing the line too, right? Where it's like, like where do you draw the line? Like do you want to make people have to learn that to get that reward, or do you want people to play their way, right? But I'm with you, DM. I like the idea of like, I get beat up or whatever, and I have to like hit the wall several times and to finally, accomplish it and get over it. But yeah,
force people into it for sure. You can't force people to be like, you have to get your ass beat. I think it's okay to have the option if people want to go find a friend to carry them. I got no problems with someone getting carried through it. I just like the fact that bosses are getting harder, that you actually have to get better at the game. I like that personally.
One question, like there's a topic that just came up in chat as well, is also like, how do you feel about the fact that we are, like, this is the 3rd season of boss rotations, and we're still forced to do it in group if we want to be any kind of efficient, especially with the Tormented now, with the Stygian stones being so rare and all that. So how do you feel about that?
So as a avid SSF enjoyer, usually, in every other ARPG, I hated the fact that I needed to find people to group to do them in an efficient rotation. But after being forced for now 3 seasons in a row, it's actually kind of funny hitting up Woody and Condis and hitting up everyone. Oh, you guys got some stones, you want to do some rotations, and then you get together, someone links a cool item, one gets 4 greater affixes, Woody steals all the Uber uniques in season 2 or season 3 from everyone. It's like kind of like, that is a fun part, but not sure if I want to miss that. I gotta be honest, it should be equal, but I'm kind of like being converted here from an SSF player to actually kind of fun grouping up. I don't know. I don't know if it's for the better or worse that I'm making that experience, but I'm having a blast with the guys in hardcore, doing the bosses. Sometimes there is crazy stuff happening. It's a lot of fun. I don't know. For me, it's getting better every season somehow.
I don't know. I never really felt that way. I think I mean, as a mostly solo player, primarily solo player, I would prefer it to not be such a big gap between doing them solo versus doing them in groups. It's obviously way way more efficient doing them in groups. So like, but the idea is to not punish the people who like to do them in groups, right? You know, like it's not their fault that they want to play with people and do that. So you don't want to punish the people who are playing in groups for doing it that way, but more so incentivize a reason to want it to do it solo. Like increase the chances of something you finding something or whatever because you did it solo versus scaling it back from parties. Because then there's at that point you're not touching the people who want to play groups, but you're helping the people who tend to rather just play solo self-found. So if there's a way to increase it for solo players without messing up group play, I would kind of like prefer that or see that as an option.
I'm gonna say
I actually
go ahead then.
Woody. There you go. Go for it. You go for it, brother. I'll hear your take first.
Okay, so I gotta say I'm actually very much on Chronix's side here. Like I'm usually more of an SLF guy, but in particular this season, especially with Tormented Bosses, it is actually really fun. It's just like, hey, you wanna go do a Tormented Duels? Hey, you wanna do Tormented Grimoires? And you group up and you blast together, and it's actually cool. So I was always more of the proponent. Okay, let's make it equal. Like just make solo play the same as a group. Or maybe give like some. It's fine to have like a slight benefit for grouping. There's still like the friction involved. Like you have to group up, you have to like find the time together. You have to find find the rotation and whatever, right? So it's okay that groups is maybe slightly more efficient. I'm still not okay under all these circumstances that groups are 4 times better than solo. It would be fine if groups were like 50% better as solo, for example, because let's say everyone who doesn't summon the boss, who's just leeching, is just getting like lower drops or something, right? So you can do some stuff like that, and it will still be fine to like join a rotation and like group up and stuff like that, but not to the degree where it's just like ridiculously overpowered. So that could be maybe some way out here, but overall, actually, I've come to enjoy the boss rotations. I gotta say, I just wish that, especially what I said earlier, like I like to just take on the challenge of a boss, go there, do it solo, and see what my build can do, send off my character, basically. I do that a lot in PoE, and like every time I do a character, I go kill all the Ubers, I go do Simulacrum 30. It's just like a rite of, a rite of passage, basically, to finish a character. And then I'm done, basically, after I've done all the hard challenges in the game. And I would like to do something similar, but it feels so bad now, especially with the stone drop rates that we discussed, to even think about, man, do I really want to farm 12 stones to like, take down the bosses for fun? Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. So yeah, that should be improved, I think.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle here. Like, I feel like having a solo cell phone tag that you could just click on would solve a lot of these issues. Where it's like the people that want to play solo, okay, you're solo cell found, you get whatever the title is associated with it. Now you don't have to, interact with. You get the prestige of being solo, whatever. I also agree that 400% feels like a lot. Like when I'm playing it and doing the stones, I feel stupid doing it solo. But the reality of it is, I just want to kill the boss. Like, I don't want to, even as a streamer that has a chat where the instant I ask for someone to play with me, I'm going to get spammed with Battle.net tags and I just take my pick of the litter, right? Like, the second I still don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to add 3 random people, invite them, wait for this guy. Someone's like, oh, I forgot I only have 1 stone. And then you're like, oh, like, it's just annoying to do a group literally regardless anyway. So I can't imagine the people that have to do it without that benefit. It's probably super fucking annoying. So for me, I just want to kill the bosses because I'm just trying to play the game. Like, I don't want to do all these things. And it's weird because in almost any other game, I never feel this way. Like, I love it. Like, I played MMOs before ARPGs because I love the interacting and the meeting new people. But I don't feel like when I go to the cave, I'm running into other people that are going to the cave to do the same thing. I feel like I go to the cave and I see a bunch of other people that are AFK with their phone on Discord or something, trying to find someone else who's going to the cave. Like, what would make sense to me is we go into the cave and then we're in like a lobby where it's like all the people go into a new instance. They're there in front of the veil of the door to go into Durio, like right before you go into. And then people are like, oh, party, one guy, barb support, looking for 3, whatever. There's no like room. We don't need a queue finder system. We just need the instance room, like a town where you go in. This is the town that everyone pops into before they go into Durio. And then I can I want to meet randoms. I don't want to randomly meet people on Discord. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at with it. So I'm kind of in between them. Like I like it. I also don't like the 4X. And I want to meet people in the game, not outside of the game.
Kind of like world bosses or like
Wonderful,
Helltide,
yeah.
right? It's like, this is very natural.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like people, like, you know, that you just happen to be there and there's a Blood Maiden going on and you just join, and, you know, it's probably more like that is what you're looking for, or what?
Yeah, like I think the world boss is very well done with the way I meet people. I'm always having interactions with people. People are mostly talking or dancing or doing some stupid mode, like waiting around for the boss. Same thing. Just need the same thing before the other bosses. That's it.
Halt.
Yeah. I know a fair bit about emoting.
No, but that's actually a great idea, DM. I like that a lot. It's like, also you, like you said, you meet other people that you probably would not reach in Discord or through Discord. You're like, oh, there is a barb. Let's just invite him. Oh, there we go. Okay, now we're 4. One guy left. Okay, oh, there's a Sorg running around. Invite. Boom. Let's go. Everybody knows what they're about to do when they're in this room, because you go there to do the Ubers, right? Or do rail. That makes total sense.
It's a natural filter. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool, but
It's a good idea.
I don't really see them doing it, man. But it's cool, yeah, to think about. You know, it's like you go there, there's like, you know, this little instance, like the pre-Dura room, right, or something. And I don't know, it could be a way to do it. I don't know. Maybe in the expansion they could redesign the stuff a little bit or whatever, right? Who knows? I like the
It's
idea
built
as well.
around the world. It's built around the world that way. It's an overworld. It's about your location based upon where you're at in the world is what you're doing, because everything's location based. So just filter people by location, I think would make sense. This is how RuneScape did it. Basically, you go to the area of the thing you want to do, and there's a lobby beforehand.
Yeah. Sounds nice. That could be a nice solution. Or like a group finder. Like, a lot of people are always asking, like, hey, group finder, when is it coming, whatever, right? And yeah, maybe you just don't have to do that. It's also like a group finder is not very like console friendly, and this is probably part of the reason why we don't have it in the
Agreed.
game. Like, you know, how do you like search for like a group, or like you have to like type and whatever. I mean, okay, people have keyboards, I guess, but not everyone really does that, right? When you play on a console, you have a controller, and I see that being like very problematic. So like the solution that DM described would be amazing. Okay, let's move on though. We talked a lot about the bosses and the stones now, so at least we got that topic covered that we had for later. Let's go back to the items a little bit again. So, what do you think about tempering? Let's keep it like an open question like that.
Oh,
Ooh,
I
okay.
I
Sorry.
had. Sorry, Doug.
No, go ahead.
It was actually crazy. I had obviously a lot of new people coming in. I was playing Necro. I was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm tempering everything that I want. It's very easy. It's like, just hit it, right? Like, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, I thought I was just lucky or anything. I don't know. I'm usually lucky when it comes to stuff like this. And I leveled the rogue right now. But now I understand what is happening. It is crazy. There is a 1 in 5 chance you're not bricking the item, and you have like 5 tries or so on trying to get like what is it, pen shot or barrage chance of shooting it twice, right? And I'm like, okay, now it was crazy. It went like this meme, and I was like, okay, now I understand what everyone is talking about. It was crazy. I did not understand what everyone was thinking. I was tempering on Necro. Oh, summoning damage. Okay, yeah, I can use that. Oh, damage to cursed. Perfect. Oh, what is this? Skeletal mage damage? Yeah, fine, I can use it. It's fine. Like, everything that procced, I was like, okay, I keep it. On Rogue, there is that. On Necro, I bricked like 2 items maybe. On Rogue, I maybe finished 2. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It's insane. I don't know how you guys are doing this.
Yeah, bro, if I get hurricane duration one more time on my druid, I'm gonna lose my mind.
What do you mean you're not playing Hurricane Druid?
No,
Heart
the
Seeker
player
duration.
came through it.
Oh man, Chronix had a very lively reaction here to this question. I love it, man. He's opened his
Yeah, no,
eyes
but there
after
was-
playing Rogue.
Yeah, really. I was
It's
like, I'm happy in my necro cave here. We're good. We're
Oh,
good.
man.
Just don't try to roll the very specific things that you're good. But Rogue, oh my god.
Man, like they stuck
True and
vulnerable
real.
damage and like cutthroat. Like there's a bunch of cutthroats and you have a random vulnerable damage. That's the only one you want. The other three you can't use. Like not even like remotely. It's just and then for what is it? For the basic attacks, right? They pretty much memed us by throwing in Heart Seeker duration just so therefore they can give us an extra chance to fail. Like who the heck would use Heart Seeker duration for anything? Anything. Like it's not even you can't even meme a build around it. Like it's insane though. But like if I had to take if I had a take on like temper though, I do hot take, I guess. I do like the idea of you being able to actually brick an item, but what I don't like is the fact that you have 5 chances between 2 different tempers. If I had a choice or if I can make an adjustment, maybe like make it 5 chance per temper. So because especially if you're like a casual, like you don't understand how the system works, you're not going to automatically assume that you have 5 chances, between both. Like that's the question I get the most, where it's like, oh, I try to roll this or whatnot. What happened? I couldn't roll. I think I rolled this 4 times and I rolled the other thing twice, and then all of a sudden I can't do it. What happened? Because it's really not really like easily explained in the game, right? So if you had a chance to like 5 times on both tempers, I think that would be more reasonable before bricking your item. But right now, I think five times total is just kind of that's a little rough.
Spicy.
I'd
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely like the tempering, and I also generally like that items can just die in the temper. So I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I do agree that some adjustments are definitely welcome as well, though. Like, there are definitely a lot of good ideas. I think the best idea that I've heard so far about how to change the tempering system, like to make it a bit more favorable to us, is just give extra temper rerolls per greater affix on the item. So that with like more greater affixes, there's like a way lower risk
I
of
like that.
picking it. So, let's say like +1 or maybe +2 tempers per greater affix or something. So it's like a much lower chance, and potentially would even have like, maybe you get lucky and you actually roll the 2 things that you wanted in like the first 2 attempts, and you have like 8 rolls left. Like, you would maybe even go and try to increase the roll, right? Like, sometimes I do that when I have like 1 greater affix and I already have another item that has 1 greater affix, and you keep finding copies of them. You just try to get better tempers at some point. And it's fine that not every item survives, and it's also fine that not every item turns out perfect, even if you get the stuff that you want. So I really like that. But I do agree there's like a lot of like really useless stuff in there, like Heart Seeker duration is definitely one of those. And they've kind of like tried to give us like a lot of different options that, we could potentially think about putting in our build. But the truth is that every rogue either wants the vulnerable damage or the crit damage, or maybe the damage to crowd controlled, right? And this is like what you put on every single offensive slot, no questions. And this is because of them being a multiplier for other sources, for the key passes and whatnot. And all this like random cutthroat attack speed and cutthroat crit chance and marksman crit chance, and you'd never consider wanting this. So I don't know. I think like maybe just like culling a few of these like random stats wouldn't be such a bad idea. Yeah, but it's kind of hard to say like what exactly they should be doing. Like, should they just remove all these random cutthroat stats and just allow us to temper like vulnerable and crit? And there could be like a new recipe, right, that combines them in a better way or something with the stuff that they actually care about. Just cut back on the amount of recipes. I don't know.
I get a little worried. I feel like it's great, with great power comes great responsibility type situation. Like, I'm cool with an item getting bricked. Like, honestly, I'm cool with losing items. This happens in great RPGs all the time. You can make an item become trash. Like that, I don't feel like that concept in and of itself is a bad concept, but they constantly come back to, they want to make it like a systems RPG. You know how many times they keep bringing up systems. So for me, I think about, okay, we'll have a systems solution then. Right now, we don't have any way of being able to add additional tempers on. Now, we can make it where it's easier to get the tempers you want by cutting out the ones we don't need. We can make it where you have more quantity of tempers, or for me, it's add something of value that allows us to have more tempers. So your idea with greater affix, I think, is a good one. But I also like the idea of like, okay, from 61 on, then pit number is just kind of a meme. So what if at 100 pit, you have a drop rate sort of similar to stones, where you can get an item, for instance, that might add +1 temper, where it's like you can get a consumable item, like sort of like the sparks or something, that you can take, and then you can add on another chance, sort of like a currency from PoE or something like that. And I know people get kind of worried about, well, then you got to get to pit 100 or what have you. You could tweak the number where you go, but I figure a problem in the game gives you an opportunity to solve it with another thing that you can acquire in order to do that, that gives you sort of an additional loop or something like that you can add to the game. So we could reduce the temper or temper bad affixes. We could add more tempers. I guess I'd be okay with these solutions, but I also feel like there's probably an opportunity to add something in there too.
I might.
I think when you
Go
talk
ahead,
about that, though, like, sorry, Carlos, I just one point. I think when you talk about the idea of being able to reset your tempers, you kind of get into the threshold of like, or not threshold, but you kind of get into the playing field of what Masterwork is doing, because like Masterworks allows you to reset as well. So it starts to kind of feel similar to that, where you have, I won't say necessarily infinite tries to be able to do it again, but then like you want the systems to kind of sort of be different from each other. Like, tempering, being able to break and there's nothing you can do about it is what makes that so much different from, let's say, the masterworking stuff. And then and the tempering stuff is also very strong, right? Like those, like the affixes you want generally are very, very strong, to the point where we don't really use uniques in a lot of slots because they are that strong, right? But yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Chronix.
I was in the PTR. After the PTR, I had the idea of just literally yoinking dungeons from last Epoch and putting DM's currency in there. But right now, I feel like that is maybe not the thing, because you don't want to force people to go out of their way to do that, and maybe tie it already in an activity that we already have, like DM said, with like pit whatever level. Maybe the easier solution. But I mean, this is a very easy way to create new content and instantly attach a meaningful way of, or a meaningful reason to run this content. Literally an orb, whatever, call it what you want, a shard that gives you 1 temper, and then maybe if you do it on World Tier 1, it works until item level so and so, and it goes up in the World Tier. I think that
Yeah, I
would be
wouldn't
a
want
great
to
solution.
reset the temp. I wouldn't want to reset them entirely, but give you like one more roll attempt with something as rare as stones. Because I agree with Dioxide. Like
Okay.
if you make it real easy to reset it entirely, then you're basically given infinite meaning. The only part I get concerned about is when we raise the floor of how easy it is to make a perfect item. Because the solutions I'm hearing of like add more tempers per greater affix or more for everything, it's just easier is all that means. So we're not actually changing anything other than it's easier to get a perfect item. And it's like, okay, maybe I'm okay with that. That's what we all agree on. But do we actually want to make a perfect item easier, or do we want to have an opportunity to raise the ceiling of the item by doing something else instead?
I see where you're coming from.
I think if they ever add like a next step after the tempering, after the masterworking, after whatever, then if you can also break your item later, right? Like say Valorb style in PoE, where you just Val at the end. If you had something like that, I think it would be fine to add something that allows you to reset temper or keep going on tempers or something. I feel like in the current game we don't have that, and breaking items is fine the way it works. Like I would be totally fine if tempering just doesn't change, honestly, because like the way that I actually started looking at items is like, okay, I make my build, it's very easy to get a build up and running. We discussed this earlier, right? You get your stuff, you have like your 0 greater affix loot. You maybe have to try on a few weapons until you get the thing. And then, okay, then you try to get another weapon and you try to improve the temper to like a better roll. And eventually you're going to get a 1 greater affix drop and you're going to try to temper the right thing. It breaks. Okay, you get a second item with a greater affix. But like those greater affixes are completely optional, right? They're not build defining. They just make you a little bit better, a little bit stronger. It's kind of like this whole, like you set up your build very easily and you get a lot of items to do that. And then you start hunting those greater affixes. And then you get a little bit better, but no one needs that, no build requires a certain greater affix or something. It's just a bit more life, a bit more damage, whatever. So it's just like, why do we care so much about breaking items? I think it's just like people that are just like not used to breaking items that, kind of like feel this loss, right? They found this great item, 3 out of 3, like a 1 in a lifetime drop for them or something, right? Once in a season drop. Like, yeah. And then you break it, and then it's like, oh man.
Yeah, I agree.
And that
Yeah, that
feels
is rough,
bad.
yeah.
And this is like kind of why I like the solution with like more greater affixes, gives you like maybe one extra roll. So it would massively decrease the chance of breaking it. It would not necessarily make it a perfect item. You can't like infinitely reset it until you get a perfect temper. Like I like the idea that you just end at some point, no matter what, right? So this is really cool about the tempering system, I think. And this is kind of needed. And I just started
There's
like,
also a point. I'm sorry, I didn't
can
mean
I
to cut you
finish?
off. Go on.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what I just started doing is like, I blast like a session, I do like a stream, and I just have like this dump tab. I just throw in like whatever good items I find, like the one greater affix, the two greater affix here and there, and I just throw them in there. And then at the end of the session, I'm just like, okay, let's take them all to the blacksmith and see what I get, And then 90% of them, like at this point, I'm just trying to get like really good rolls of exactly the right tempers on a greater affix item, because I have found like 10 or 20 copies of a bow already that has like a greater affix dex or a greater affix life, and I just try to go for like the GG tempers now, and 95% of them just don't work out, and I salvage them, and you clean up the stash, and the items just flush straight into the toilet basically, and I kind of like that, it's like
It's
it's like
an
a
item
really
sink,
nice,
basically.
clean way of like, you know what you get. It's easy to set up a build. No one needs greater affixes, and yeah, why not break the items, right? So that's how I see it.
The point I was going to say too is I almost feel like there's we're saying bricking items, but also the reality is these items aren't bricked. They're just not min-maxed perfectly like we wanted them to be. Like they don't have the temper that we wanted or something, but it doesn't necessarily make the item useless. It's not like we Val-orbed in a legendary item and it becomes like a random rare with dog shit stats. Like one of the tempers maybe was a low row, or maybe it doesn't have the bonus we want. We probably have to redo another item, but all the greater affixes are still there. All the other affixes. So it's like the bricking items can feel bad because you didn't make it the ultimate min-max item you wanted, but you still have the item and you can still use it till you get a better replacement too. So my point is I agree with you. I actually don't think bricking items or having the possibility is that big of a problem. Like if we're reaching for this is our issue with the season, it's like, it's a pretty damn good season then, because honestly, I'm like, well, it can stay like it is and I'm okay with it. Like, yeah, I would like it if it wasn't, but it's okay. I mean, the fact that we're there is like, all right, that's fine with me then.
Yeah,
Woody agree.
sorry.
Go ahead, Woody.
No, okay, so now like counter that. It's like if you don't get the right temper, then the item is useless. At least if you're talking about any like a level 100 character. If you're like leveling up, you're like level 70, yeah, sure, you're gonna take what you get, right? And then you find the next item and you're gonna temper that until you get what you want. And then you have your setup, right? You have the stats, you have like, your weapon with your life, dex, and whatever damage stat. And then you have like your chance to cast Barrage twice because you're playing Barrage build. And this will be the combination of stats you will have on every weapon from that point forward. And you will never equip another weapon that did not hit the right thing. And this will be at level 70, right? So it's kind of like the item is unusable if you don't hit the temper, basically. There might be cases where it doesn't matter that much, like it doesn't really matter if you hit like this other CC type on like an armor slot, if you already have this that you need anyway, like a chance to freeze or a chance to stun, like who cares? And like it doesn't really matter if you hit like that resource cost reduction or that resource generation on a ring, right? But on some things it matters. So yeah, this is like something I want to put out there. And again, like all of these like item upgrades that we would get from tempering, and then items like not turning out the way that we want it to be, I think it's fine because all of these upgraded items, they're just like, minuscule upgrades, right? Yeah, like, sure, you get like 3% more DPS for having a greater affix dex roll, or you get like 5% more life from having a greater affix life roll. But does it really matter? Yeah, sure, for min-max it does. But talking about like, okay, hey Woody, you play the game 10 hours a day, you find so many items, casuals don't find those. No, it doesn't matter, because casuals do find items. Casuals do find not greater affix items, but they do find items, and they can temper them to get the stuff they want. And everything else is optional. So I think that's fine.
I think on the top end, you are 100% put on. We just throw them in the grinder and see what comes out, right? But I'm just scared after my rogue experience that people have maybe when they just now want to start their build have a little bit of a problem. It was eye-opening for me there, trying to get that barrage chance for more barrage projectiles or whatever, and then 1 in 5, and it was rough. I mean, sure, for me it's fine. I'll just go and find 10 more bows in the next 5 minutes. But it's rough when people find 3 bows and then they all brick. That's a rough experience, I think. On the
Yeah.
high end, I'm totally fine with bricking. That's perfect, right? Like, it's good. Oh, I have 10 bows. Let's see what we get here. Perfect example from Woody. On the entry, when you're just trying to scramble together the stuff to make your build work with hard seed, you need all the vulnerable damage and so on and so forth, right? Or just that basic thing to get you going. On Necro, easiest thing I've ever seen. On Rogue, that was rough.
Okay,
So I
n-
guess it
Through
could
it,
be like
yeah.
The
it
entry,
could be
right?
based on the like per class and stuff like that, or having the tempers be more useful in general in case you don't get the exact right one. Obviously, if you don't get vulnerable damage for a Heartseeker build or a pin shot build, stuff like that, you got cutthroat. Like there, you just can't use that temper. But I think also there's also a bigger thing like FOMO. It's like especially when you get like a 3 greater affix item and you roll for it and it bricks, but then your friend got his to roll well, and like there's that big kind of like you feel some kind of way. Like, I mean, you like your friend, don't get me wrong, but you definitely feel some kind of way because because like it's like, man, like if only I had that kind of luck, but and again, for a grinder, that's really not too big of a deal. Then you'll just play and get another one. But for someone who only maybe have like a couple of hours on the weekend to play, like that's like heartbreaking for like your friend, like as a casual, that's like a heartbreaking, what I mean? So that definitely does feel like awful, like real
but does it
awful.
really
Really
feel that
nervous.
bad? Like, losing an item. Like, okay, I also found like a 3 greater affix item and it didn't turn out. Or I found a bunch of 2 greater affix. I had like this really nice pair of boots, 2 greater affixes, and I just didn't get the movement speed and I didn't get the other thing, and it felt bad. And I still have 0 greater affix boots, but on the other hand, I don't know, you just need to let go. I feel like this is kind of like the thing that, you could find so many items, and even if they're not greater affixes, at some point you're gonna hit what you want, and this is it. But I mean,
Right, but I think from that point of view, though, you have to consider you play efficiently and you play a lot. So like you're gonna run across that considerably more times than like let's say the average casual will. Like if the average casual got super lucky, he may not find that for the rest of the season, and that item breaks and that's it.
I mean, fair.
So like that kind of gets like. So I get what you're saying, Woody, and I'm on closer to your spectrum with that in terms of like efficient farming, but like I can also kind of like feel for those who literally may not find that for like a whole another 2 months
I
or
don't know.
so.
I think you cannot. I think you cannot actually get to level 100. Let's say you get to level 100 on the character, right? I think you cannot get to level 100 and not have the tempers that you want on your gear with the right stats. Like, this is just not happening. It doesn't have to do anything with efficiency. As long as you get to 100, you will have the items with the stats you want. Like, no greater affixes.
You get a lot of legendary items. They said they reduced the drop rate, but the reality is they up the mob density. So I feel like I'm getting more legendary drops than literally any other season. It's just I'm not crunched so much in the stash because of the codex, which is super nice, by the way. That's like probably one of my favorite things about the season. But I only have one level 100 and like a level 60 something hardcore Sork. And I have definitely bricked an item that is a 2-hander. My 2-hander right now, fully masterwork, but has damage to distant, right? And I want damage to close, which is like, okay, and I got no more re-rolls, and the tornado isn't maxed out and all that stuff. So it's kind of a bummer, but I also, like, I don't know how do you get the let's fucking go moment of hitting what you want without the possibility of losing it? Like, I don't know if you can get there, then how are you ever going to have the same level of, oh, fuck yeah. Like, can you have that without the possibility of literally having something horrible to happen? If you're either going to get in a car wreck or you're going to get $1 million, depending upon which way you go, like, one of them's going to be a lot more exciting. I don't know how we fix this.
Yeah, I really agree with that. It feels so good if you actually get that hit, right? It feels so good. It might not happen very often, right? But and even for people that play less than us, like, it will not happen, many times even in a season, right? It's gonna have like this one or maybe there's 2 shiny examples, like, hey, I actually got this 2 greater affix item and I did get the tempers and it felt so good, right? And it's actually something to remember. Like, at this point, I'm not trying to min-max my character to like a way further degree, right? But yeah, like I totally get what he's saying. Like there is a chance of breaking the item, and when you don't break it and it hits the right thing and it's a good item, then you feel good about it. And you would not feel good about it in the same way. So that's a very good point there. And one other thing that Chronic said earlier. Sorry, I want to finish this. One thing that Chronic said earlier, like he's like, I think Chronic said something like, yeah, like the casuals, they might have trouble actually getting the gear and stuff, right? And you know, why it's not easy for the casuals, and you know, as a blaster, I don't care if I break 10 builds in a row. Okay, so new suggestion. How about each greater affix reduces the chance to temper by 1? So how about that? If you really want to have to try hard high-end items.
No, I'm a big fan of the greater affix gives you one more try, because that offsets the fear and makes that special item at least gives you more chances to make that special item really special, and it feels a little bit less bad for sure. I think that's just a great solution overall. Maybe even better than a maybe even better than a consumable that you have to go out and infinitely farm that. I think that's definitely the worst solution when it comes to greater FX increases the temper chance. For sure.
I agree. I mean, my mentality, like whenever I stream, is like, you know, I'll pull out like, you know, 6 or 7 bows and be like, all right, all right, so how many of you guys are gonna break this time? You know, like I go in with the mentality that I'm going to fail my tempers, and when it actually hits where it hits, I'm like, oh, okay, we can actually use this one. Like I never go in thinking I'm gonna actually succeed on an item. But yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like somewhat comparable to like the old enchanting system. Like, you know, before the season we had uncapped enchanting costs, right? And you kind of effectively soft bricked items because you just didn't have the money to roll them anymore, right? Like the enchanting costs would just go way out of bounds, and after like 10 rolls or 20 rolls, it was just broke. And every roll would just keep going and exponentially increasing the cost to like 10 million, 20 million. Like it was just crazy, right? At least now it's capped and you can kind of keep enchanting. And there is kind of like a way out. You know, it's a very costly way still, but there is a way out to get the enchant that you want. And it's not like this, okay, I have to farm like 1 billion gold now to do like 10 rolls, and that's it, right? So at least, you know, the item is gone, you flush it into the toilet, and you find another one at some point, right? So this is how I see it. And for that, you know, it doesn't feel that bad to the same degree that enchanting felt bad. It was like, oh man, I got that item, it has the rolls, and I just can't enchant it. And now what, right? I think it felt worse in the past than it does now with tempering.
What do you think about the ability to lock a temper? So let's say you have 5 rerolls, you've already placed your 2, okay? The first one that you get in the temper is what you wanted. I'm just going to use the Druid example because it's the one I know. I got my Tornado chance to get a double Tornado, okay? But I got the low roll of the affix. So now I have to ask myself, do I want to gamble on my affix again to try to reroll the same one I already have, for instance, and only a higher row percentage this time? So the answer is no, I probably don't. I'm just going to keep the lower row because I don't want to gamble, right? What would you think about the ability at a cost to be like, for this one, I lock it, so the only way that it will override is if it hits the same affix, or at least be able to take a preview before you accept it? Because for me, I'm kind of okay with the system, but one of the things that does feel bad is when I have additional tempers to use, but I already have what I want, it's just not a good variant of the stat I want. It's like, I have other chances, but the reality is I'm be dumb to use them because I'm probably going to brick my item more likely than not. So having the possibility of being able to use it almost feels bad to me because it just sits there. It's like, do I want to? Do I want to? So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I hate having tempers left over, but I hate not having an item that is usable, basically. So kind of it's the lesser of the two evils, but it would be a great idea if you could, let's say you hit both of them on the first try, you have what, remaining 3 rolls, let's say, in total. You sacrifice 1 to lock one of them, and you have 2 more rolls or so.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know, just brainstorming here. But then again, we are at the point where what we said earlier, then it makes attaining the perfect items so much easier, right?
Yeah, I think it's totally fine that no one has a perfect, like, default planner item, and it's just, like, unrealistic to even consider that. I think that's fine. Like, we had that in the past, it was so easy to get all your items and get all the stats, and no one really cared about loot at the higher end, right? You just got all the stuff. And now you actually have a chase, it can always get better. And if you introduce these kind of, like, okay, more temper resets, whatever, like, select the last option again, then you're basically enchanting within tempering, right? It's basically the same system if you just select no change. So I don't know. I think it's fine that there is, like, a considerable risk of breaking the item. You find another item. This is life. So in my book, they could actually just not change tempering, and I would actually still be happy with the system, even with, like, all the stuff we discussed now. But yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Well, you
Maybe
want
we
to move
should have
on from?
Yeah, we
Maybe
can
we
probably
should
move on if
have-
there's no more points about tempering. Let's talk
Yeah,
about
maybe we should have
Masterworking.
said we all like it a lot. Maybe that should
Yeah.
have been the first
I-
statement, right?
yeah.
We like it a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's talk about Masterworking. So what do you think about that system? How did that feel for you so far, in general?
I don't really have any complaints, to be honest. I quite like it. I didn't realize that you're going to be able to Masterwork temper the affixes as well. That was something that dawned upon me after the launch of it. But I don't actually really have any complaints outside of the currency cost, right? That's already been discussed by a billion people and is already getting patched out. So
Yeah, I'm in the same logic as DM. I think it's good where it's at. I actually do like the idea that. Actually, let me double check this in the patch notes. Coming up, it's still 5 mil to reroll, right? Even though they lessen
Yeah,
the
they're
goal
not
to get
changing
there.
that.
That's
Yeah,
good
same.
because I think that's a good thing because it still should cost something for you to get another chance, or something that isn't just free to reroll as often as you would like. So I think the changes that they're doing with that is actually really good, and I think the Masterwork system is actually it's good. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. One thing I really like about the Masterworking system is also that you only have to somehow get to tier 61 to be able to complete your character, right? If you can do a tier 61 pit, then you can get any item in the game Masterworked up to 12, and you can find any item and so on, right? So there's not, like, a really large bar to entry. It is more efficient to farm the higher tiers, of course, and a better build does it faster, but it's also not really, like, I don't really feel, like, unnecessarily punished for playing, like, a C tier build that can only farm tier 70 instead of, like, an S tier build that can farm 100. It's like, okay, I'm going to be a bit slower. But, after all this progression that you do, leveling up the character, farming the glyphs, farming the gear, getting a greater affix to doing the Helltide Iron Wolf grind, and then at some point you masterwork, right? If that masterworking at the end takes, like, 5 hours longer because I'm playing a bad build, so be it, right? So after, like, those other 50 hours or 100 hours that I've already invested into doing all the other stuff, I guess I can afford another 5 hours for playing a bad build. So I kind of like how the system is set up with the masterworking mats in general. And they can convert it down, and then you can easily get to 4, you easily get to 8, and then it gets very difficult to get to 12. And it's like the end game min-maxing. I guess a lot of people will actually not even go to 12 on the items, right? Maybe they have, like, the 1 item or 2 items or whatever that are 12. Like, hell, I don't even have 12 out of 12 on, like, half my gear right now. Like, it actually is such a long grind, right? But it gives you something to grind for, and I really like that. And it's not like, okay, just masterwork everything over and over and over and just reset every time until hit 3 out of 3 on every single item. It's kind of similar to tempering, where you feel really good to hit a masterwork crit on the right thing. And, well, you can redo it if you really want to, but you have to consider, okay, it's like, more gold, more materials. But I don't feel like I really want to reset my masterworking, and, like, okay, I take what I get. Maybe at some point later I'll try to redo it. And I really like that it has, like, also this incentive, like, or, like, not incentive, but this feeling of, okay, I hit something good. It feels nice. I got the right thing, on the second try or something. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, I'm a big fan that we don't require 12 out of 12 to do anything high end in the game. I'm actually very curious how low we can actually go in the next season now that the baseline is established of killing the Ubers during a race scenario or so. Like, there's so much optimization you can do with the masterworking. Obviously, we were a little bit more scared this time around, but I don't know. Like Woody is probably going to go in there 2 minutes after hitting level 100 or so the next season. So, like it's there is like you can cater the difficulty now. You say like, oh yeah, 4 out of 12, that's fine. I can do everything in the game, and be done with it. And you can go like, no, I wanna go and play the game longer, and you get rewarded for doing so by better gear. You can do the stuff faster, but it's not required. And I was a little bit scared that you needed to go to a certain masterworking level to be able to do anything in the first place. And I'm happy that is not the case. So yeah, it's just an
Yeah.
optional thing after, let's say, maybe 8 or so. And I think getting to 8 out of 12 fairly easy and really quickly. And you can stop there if you want, and you can do the next character. But you can also continue and create the absolute machine that is going to annihilate everything, right? So I think giving the player as much choice as possible how to play, perfect perfect thing to do, and masterworking, in my opinion, does just that in terms of, oh, you just you only want to farm Ingolith? Yeah, sure, go ahead. You only want to do the Opticide stuff? Yeah, sure. You can still complete everything you want to. You're not forced to doing it. But you can if you really chase that 99th percentile character.
Agreed.
All right.
The complaints of the masterworking aren't actually part of the masterworking. It's from the pit side of things. Because I don't have any feedback I would give to masterworking. I just kind of like the way it is. I think it's pretty well balanced, to be honest. Feels good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Well, in that case, do you want to talk anything else about itemization, like the large topic of drops, temperers, whatever? Is there anything else that we didn't touch here?
How do you guys feel about?
Dark said.
Oh, sorry. I think rares become obsolete way too early right now in the game. I was quite surprised when I got the World Tier 3 that I was still picking up rares, and it dawned on me. I'm just like, why am I still picking up rares again? Because the legendary drop rate was actually it's just because you remember the devs were saying that we would get better items, but they won't drop as much, right? And so now I don't really feel like that, because legendary drops like candy, especially from Helltide. So it's if you're gonna always have legendaries that early, going into World Tier 3, there's virtually no reason to even pick up rares even at that point, because legendary drop rate is just high enough. It's pretty high enough that you can just wait for that. So I do think rares get invalidated way too early. I don't really know what the real fix is by that, but it would be nice to have to care about rares past World Tier 2, I guess. But other than that, that's it.
I think it's fine that rares are just kind of whatever. I think they said something that along the lines that they want to do something with the other rarities at some point. So maybe you're gonna get whatever rune words, right? And you have to pick up white items and socket them and whatever. And who knows, right? Maybe they're gonna do something like that. So who knows what's coming out of it? I think it's fine that rares are in the spot they are right now. I feel like in general maybe there's too much loot still. It's they promised me a massive reduction in drops, but I don't feel it. My inventory fills up in 3 minutes in Helltide, and there's nothing I can do about it, right? People stand at the Blood Maiden and grind the Blood Maiden, she dies instantly, it drops out 20 items, or I feel that is still a bit crazy. And okay,
you get
even
legendaries within 10 minutes of starting a new character.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe a bit much in general. There's just a lot of stuff dropping. When I do Nightmare Dungeons, it actually feels kind of good. I can run 4 Nightmare Dungeons in a row, and then my inventory is full. Or I can do 5 Nightmare Dungeons. This used to be very different in the past. And same with Pit, right? You can do 5 Pit runs in a row. You get 5 items every time. Yeah, that's fine, for a 3-minute run. But then when you go to Helltide, it feels like there's so much stuff spawning. There's elites in every corner coming out of nowhere. You open the chest, there's 8 items coming out. Blood Maiden, it's so crazy what's going on there, and I just find myself TPing to town every 3 minutes. It's a bit over the top there. So where's my promised loot reduction? It kind of is there in some parts of the game, but not in all. Maybe this is an issue with Helltide just being too crazy and overtuned, and Like I think it's fine that there's a lot of stuff going on. Like Helltide actually feels cool now, but the drop size is too much.
And then and then Helltide is actually more dense now, so trying to TP back to town is even harder than
Yeah,
before.
you can't even TP exactly.
Yeah,
They're not gonna let you do
true.
it, right? So you're going back to the town more often, but you trying to get to town is actually harder than it was before. So, but yeah, sorry, DM.
No, you're good, brother. I would say just leave it like it is. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I don't want a reduction of anything. People are playing the game and liking the game. Obviously, the overwhelming dopamine is working for all of us. I feel more excited to make a new character. That's something I'm noticing because I know I'm gonna get flooded with shit. Like I'm the first character in the first progression. Okay, it's pretty fast, sure. But like now, I actually am like, okay, I think I'm gonna make all of the classes this season. Because I know I'm not going to spend fucking 15 hours to get all the aspects I need for each class. Maybe on one character I'm getting through it fast, but by now it's like, okay, I really want to try was the sorcerer. I never actually got a sorcerer the 100th ever because I was playing druid over and over and over again for some reason. So I'm like, let me actually try the sorcerer. Now I'm getting my aspects fast. I can try the different builds, figure out what I like before I hit level 100 and start masterworking everything. I actually can kind of figure out which of the builds I actually like. And then maybe I'll try rogue finally because now I know it's not going to take me forever. So I find myself kind of liking the immediately getting legendaries within minutes of starting it because I can kind of start piecing together the build because getting the 100 so much shorter now. By the time I hit there, now, I'm getting it so much earlier, I can actually figure out what I'm doing.
Oh yeah, sure. Especially DM, thank you for that. You've taught me that there is this cache on the alchemist from your
Yeah.
video. I was like, what? And all my chat, we watched your video while I was eating, and I was like, wait, what is he talking about? There is a cache you can craft for iron hide and iron chunks. Hide and iron chunks, and you literally get that. You can only craft it between 10 and 50 or
20 and
something.
50.
20 and 50.
Yeah.
And it literally you cost basically nothing, and you get 3 legendaries for your alts. But
I loved that when I
I
found
don't know
that
how
out.
I unlocked it. I think I unlocked it with the season journey or so because that was crazy. That was a kickstart for the alts. It was insane. I had so much fun.
It wasn't mentioned anywhere.
Legendary. Let's go. That was awesome.
Yeah. It felt great.
That
You
was
make a
great.
new character, and then you're just like, give me 30 legendary items. Boom,
Yeah.
baby. And then you just get a whole, it's like, all right, I got my aspects. No, I actually felt
Let's
great.
go.
They didn't mention it anywhere. So when I was
No.
trying to transmute, I was like, what the fuck is this thing? Like, what's a legendary cat?
And all my
What?
chat was like, wait, what is he talking about? See, Woody doesn't even know.
Does
I have
Woody
no
not
idea
know?
what
I was like, what is that? Yeah.
What?
Go into the game,
Bro,
go to
I didn't
the
know either,
alchemist,
honestly.
but you need to be between, say it again, DM, what was it?
20 and 50. So
20 and
between
50.
levels 20 and 50, you can go to the alchemist, and there's a legendary cache that you can create for just raw hides and raw ore, like the cheapest materials possible, and some gold, admittedly. But you can make it, and it just gives you a random legendary. So you can just be like, give me 50 legendaries, and you can just print them. So when you make a new character, you can just get all your aspects immediately on an alt. It's super nice.
That's crazy. I have not heard anyone talk about this. That's insane.
Yep.
I didn't
That
even
was
know it was in the
crazy.
game. I hadn't heard
And now,
anything of it.
and now
too.
my
I read an
my
issue.
chat is like what, you didn't know that or something? Like it's like, how should I know? Like, who the hell goes to town to the alchemist of all people at level 20?
Craft items there.
How did you even find
Yeah.
that?
It's
Yeah,
super
it was
useful.
insane. I agree. Like I think it's fine if your alts are like supercharged. I think that's in my opinion, you can extend your ARPG life cycle of a season by creating new characters. I think we can all agree that is probably the most fun. And just creating new characters. Oh, I saw on a stream, I saw this build. That looks cool. I want to do this. And if you can jump right in and do that thing at level 30, that feels insane. That is so good for the leveling. Only thing I was scared about, to go a little bit back here in the topic, in my first character's progression, I think it was a little bit too crazy that as soon as I hit level 35, I was in World Tier 3, I go to the Obol vendor, I right click every of these and I'm full sacred, and I do the exact same thing again in World Tier 4. I'm full ancestral and I don't have to worry about anything. That's like nothing can kill me because I'm instantly ancestral, I'm instantly sacred. that was a little bit too crazy, I think, for me.
100% agree with that. I think that's a very good point, actually. I feel like the first thing I do when I go to the next tier is, do I have oboes? Yes, go buy all the gear. Like there should be the step of getting the next tier of gear feels diminished because you don't have that pushback when you go to the next tier. Like you would think, okay, let me fight something that's more difficult and then I earn it or something like that. It almost feels to me like if they added some of the gear in the capstone dungeon, where it's like you fight the boss and then maybe the boss gives you a few pieces of it or something, so you feel like a reward for beating a challenge, as opposed to my reward is now I just go to a vendor and get it.
Yeah, I do exactly the same thing, and I feel like there's like zero item progression in like World Tier 3. Like if you're speed running, you get through World Tier 3 in like literally 30 minutes. You kill the curator, and then I kill Elias 30 minutes later if I really want to. Like it's like wow, you know, I don't even have time to pick up any items at this point, right? I just like blast through like another Helltide or something, and that's it. And it's like, yeah, okay, like what do I do with all these items? Just go to the trash. I go to World Tier 4. I think maybe a general problem is just like World Tier 3 just being like extremely squished now, right? Like leveling is really fast, and Nightmare difficulty is just kind of like this little middle stone, like, you know, like it's even shorter than World Tier 2, right? You spend like maybe an hour or 1 or 2 hours to like World Tier 3, and then you spend like half an hour to World Tier 4. I think they could just extend Sacreds, you know, massively. Like, why doesn't Nightmare difficulty just go to like, I don't know, level 80 or level 90 or something, right? And then you have like World Tier 4 after that, where actually like, you spend a few hours in Nightmare difficulty with Sacred Loot. And, you know, there is maybe some upgrading, you know, maybe you're gonna start Temper or some stuff. And, you know, like, it feels good to find an item here and there. Versus, okay, you go to the vendor, you right click. And I don't think it's much of a problem with like the oboes being OP. I think it's more of a problem with Nightmare difficulty just having no reason to exist. Like, at this point, they can just make Torment difficulty like level 100 only, even. Like the World Tier 5 that we've been asking for example, it's just a World Tier 4 now, and you just make Nightmare be the level difficulty. Like, why not that, for example?
So, you want to say something, actually?
No, I'm
Okay.
good.
So let me ask you like a temperature check on this here. How much of this is a problem for us because we're like playing the game 12 hours a day, and how much of this is a problem do you think just in general fundamentals of the game? I see what you're saying about World Tier 3 because I feel the same way. Like I go into it, I'm there for like an hour, go from what is it, 35 to 55, and then you go right into World Tier 4, right? But or whatever level you're doing it at. But you think it's really? Do you think that the majority of people are blasting through World Tier 3 that fast, or you think it feels like a legitimate stepping stone for them? Because I only know it through my lens, which is like I got all day to play, but I don't know how many. You think everyone's like triple dipping incense, the quest elixir plus normal potions, sitting at the Helltide, like spamming the Blood Maiden with the hearts they already have from their previous character? Like how much of World Tier 3 time do you think the normal dude's getting?
I think
On
it's
the
definitely the
first or the old?
shortest World Tier, right? Even like we can ask chat, but I guess most people spend the least time in World Tier 3 out of all World Tiers.
I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. What if you just give plus 10 levels to Elias and the second capstone dungeon and extend it that way?
Sorry, what was
what
that?
do you mean?
So right now everybody goes into the second capstone at 55, right? And instead of doing that, or instead of being able to do that, you basically plus 10 Elias and also the ancestral requirement. So you just say Elias is now not 50, not 75, but 85. So you go at 85 now, and ancestral is also only available at 65 now.
You'd have to
Basically plus
retune
10 levels.
Helltides then, because Helltides are 78, right? To start.
Yeah, I
of
mean, you
course,
can like
also
retune
plus
all
10
of the
that,
levels a
right?
little bit, right? You can just raise all of the levels, all of the requirements, whatever, like by like 10, for example, right? Or 20.
Yeah.
And then just extend Nightmare difficulty. And I think this wouldn't be such a bad idea. It kind of would feel more meaningful to actually go to World Tier 4. Because right now it's like, if you actually play a season to level 100, even if you don't like necessarily mega grind 100 hours after that, you spend almost all of your playtime in World Tier 4. And at least there would be like a bit more of like something to look forward to as you level up your character, right? Leveling is already kind of fast. You go to World Tier 3 relatively early, and then at least you would kind of like, you know, get used to those more endgame systems. You get used to Nightmare Dungeons, whatever, right? This is why they did that whole like World Tier 3 in the first place, right? This is like, now you have Nightmare Dungeons, now you have Helltides. Well, Helltides are now in level 1 already. But, you know, there's like more stuff unlocking basically, right? And sacred items right now, at least, are just kind of like completely pointless. You just do the vendor thing, get all the sacred loot, go to Elias, boom, and that's it. And I feel like, yeah, they can just like extend it, and that's it. Just like let me actually feel good about some of the sacred loot I get on the way, at least, you know. Let me maybe find like a few sacred uniques on the way, and you know, maybe eventually replace them. But it's like, hey man, I found that item, and it's kind of cool that I got it now instead of later. I don't know. I feel like it would make more sense and would be more fun.
Yeah, scaling all the levels, I think, too, as well, is the key there. Even chat was just like, "What is World Tier 1?" Right.
Yeah.
So we have World Tier 2 and World Tier 4 right now. That's kind of the game at the moment. But yeah, I agree. I don't have anything else more to add to that, honestly.
All right. Yeah, who knows? Maybe we're gonna get a rebalance of these world tiers at some point. So maybe not now, but I mean, the expansion is kind of on the horizon anyway. So I would imagine this is like a time to do that, no matter what. All right, we have like one more big topic actually to discuss, which is actually two topics. So we haven't really talked too much about Helltide. We just said Helltide is crazy for loot. Is there any other opinions about Helltide maybe before we move on to balance?
Love Helltide. Love all the chaotic, different types of events. Being able to make it a little stronger, you know, by eating the brain or whatever you do with that thing, and then summoning the blood mating. I do think if there's anything, if I had to make any sort of criticism about Helltide, is that that blood mating event. I feel like I spend way too much time there because it's just so efficient. Just kind of just doing that over and over and over and over again. But it is a great feeling to kind of run into other players, and you know everyone kind of puts in the heart, or at least wait for you to put your hearts in because they don't want to use theirs, and I do the same thing too. So we're just sitting there looking at each other. But it's a social event that's actually kind of fun, right? But you know, so like I like that, but I also think that you know a lot of times it decentivized me for doing other things around Helltide because that event is just so good. Like it's just so good in general that I generally don't do much of else around the Helltide. You know what I mean? So I don't really know what a real solution, you know, could possibly be for that because it's fun, it's good. But yeah, I would like more incentive to go and do other things that are also really cool in Helltide. But the Blood Maiden is just so cool, man. But overall, I think Helltide's the way that they've done it now is significantly better than what it was before.
Completely agree. It's way better than it was before. I don't know how we solve the solution to what you're talking about. I feel the same way, where I'm going to spend a lot of time there. I don't know how we solve this. I mean, if we all remember the launch of the game, watching Shroud do the same dungeon over and over and over again, all the way from level 1 to like 100 or whatever, just resetting the dungeons. Like, if there's a place where you can get more experience than any other place, like, we're all going to go there. So I don't really know how to solve it. But I do actually feel the same way, which is like the Blood Maiden feels great, but I am spending, 80% of my time there until I go do Nightmare Dungeons or something. No complaints about. I would like to have a couple extra Helltide chests, maybe. Like one with gold, maybe one with like a horse cosmetic, you know, how you can get the bards or whatever. Maybe like a couple extra things, just because we're getting so many cinders, but it's minor feedback.
I would really like to hear Chronix's opinion on this because my perspective is completely the opposite from yours, guys. Like,
really?
I never do. I have like 400 hearts. I never do the Blood Maiden, only if there's a whisper for it, and that's it. Because there's no one there on hardcore. There's no one looking at me, looking at each other, you know. Sometimes there's some people, okay, but this is kind of rare. Like, I go there if there's a whisper, and I'm like, hey, yeah, I get 5 Grim let's go. And I go there on one of my characters now, and I do it real quick, and that's it. So this is like a completely different. And this is running around. I have so much fun just like running around in Helltide and kind of like grinding my way from chest to chest, and like, you know, you have elite spawning on you and whatever. So I really like that actually a lot more than just sitting at a Blood Maiden. But I also think it's good that Blood Maiden is efficient and people like doing it, and people that want to sit there all day and like, you know, spend their hearts, sure, right? I think the Blood Maiden is not like overly problematic in terms of being like too OP in terms of loot or so, and you know, just going around the Helltide, opening a chest is like you get a lot of stuff there, and it feels good as well. Because otherwise you have to probably have to run around for like 15 minutes at the end of it at 1,000 cinders and, and just run from chest to chest and get interrupted by the worm spitting at you and whatever, right? So I kind of like how it's just chaotic and how there's like many viable ways of playing Helltide, I feel. So that's really like my opinion here, but I'd like to hear Chronix as well.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys are doing at the altar. I'm like, don't you put that hard on that thing. Are you crazy? No. Don't put it on that. Please stop. I'm like there. I'm like, oh my God, they put 3 hearts there. I'm out. I'm like running. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm gone. And it's back to Kyovashad. You know how you can grieve other people with the flame things that you're dropping. I'm like, nope, I don't trust any of you guys. You don't put the hearts in there. I'm out. I'm as far as away as possible as I can be from that thing. I don't do it. It's like I'm sitting at 350 hearts minimum. I've put like 1 on there and then just ran away. And then I came back and I saw 2 ghosts and I was like, yep, I'm not doing that for sure.
I've certainly seen people rip on the Blood Maiden.
Yeah, like it's great, but I don't want to be in their shoes for sure. Like
Dude, that circle hits so goddamn hard. Like if you make the mistake of walking with the circle, it's like proccing every half second. You get shot for 1 billion damage.
Yeah, it's insane. I've seen so many people rip. I'm like, oh my God, it's actually cool that you see people die now. But I mean,
yeah, it is. It is amazing,
right?
actually. Like I really like that it's like this kind of social, random, chaotic encounter, and it still kills people. And I think that's really good. You know, it's like a dangerous boss, even though it's a somewhat easy boss, you can say, right? You can just take her down really fast and whatever, right? It's kind of like a world boss thing. But she's at least dangerous. Like, there's like one big thing that world bosses are lacking, right? World bosses are, okay, let's not talk about Chronix, but world bosses are not dangerous, right? No one dies to world bosses on like an appropriate level, appropriate geared character, right? They hit you for like 5% of your life. But, like, the Blood Maiden, at least she can be dangerous under all circumstances, and that's really good about her. That makes it like exciting, and sometimes you die, and you know, on softcore nothing happens, but on hardcore it's also funny. So it's like, yeah, it's really cool they did that, and they need to give the same treatment to world bosses, I feel.
Now my chat is spamming -5 Ubers. Thank you, Woody.
Unlucky, I guess.
-5 Ubers?
Just to catch you guys up, I was leveling a rogue, and as I said earlier, I had a lot of Ubers. You can equip them at 35. I was like, okay, let's try it out. Let's make a rogue. I slapped Andariel's on their Doombringer, Tyrael's Smite, Starless, and a Zelig, and I was like, let's go. And flew through literally everything, and then my chat was like, oh, world boss in 2 minutes, world boss in 2 minutes. And I'm like, no, I'm level 51. I'm not gonna kill a level 90 world boss. And then they kept spamming, and I was like, man, I gotta at least win 1 category in the max roll event. So I was like, okay, let's go. And then I maybe inted Ashava a little bit with those 5 Ubers. That was classic. That was good. And that was fun.
Oh, right, someone says I can't count the number of times I lost 600 sinners at a Blood Maiden. True, you actually lose sinners when you die, right? I completely missed that mechanic until, like, you know, half a year into the game's life cycle, because I never played softcore, but you actually lose sinners, so that's actually kind of funny. So at least there's some kind of threat there on softcore. But yeah.
I do have 1 complaint for Helltide, and I think that's easily fixable, and I'm happy that this is the only thing. Please don't knock me off my horse when the worm spawns. Please, that is the worst thing. I hate it so much, and then I need to, especially as a necro, I have to like crawl for the next 20 seconds because my horse is on cooldown. That is the only thing that gets me every time. I'm like, happened again, you know, because there's no warning. I can't dodge it. It's just, wow, I'm here, you know, and then like, oh, my horse is gone. Okay. That's the only complaint I have. Everything else is wonderful.
But yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, we talked about how rewarding Helltide is. I think it's also fine that it's dangerous, right? So it kind of goes together. So.
Oh yeah, the amounts of me trying to teleport to a city, and then when I start the teleport, the map closes, and suddenly there's like 5 explodey boys going off. It's great. But a rough feeling sometimes. Yeah, it's definitely a jump scare.
Yeah, I had my character like look at the map for like 2 seconds, and then suddenly it's like a bunch of elites spawning on you, and you don't hear them or something. And then I'm like, I come out of the map, I have like 20% HP. Like, yeah, oof.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah,
And I'm
it
glad
definitely happened.
and I'm glad it's also scary for softcore because then you get a glimpse of what it is to actually get jump scared like that, right? Actually funny. If you survive, that is.
Yeah. All right. Dyson, do you want to say something on this? I'm not sure if you were going to.
Oh no, I'm done with Helltide.
Okay. Well then, okay, last big topic I had for today is class and game balance. So how do you feel about, the game's difficulty now? How easy it is to push, like, the pits or like whatever, whatever comes to your mind right now. Do you think it's fine, getting vomited with loot and then being overpowered, leveling to 100? Is it fine
can
that
tell
pit
you-
bosses one-shot you at the higher tiers,
Yeah, I was going to get into that in a minute, but the how I feel about it is there's less on board moments. Like pretty much my take on the whole season is what it felt like they did was they took the gaps of time in which you're kind of getting drained, bored, like getting from level X to level Y is taking forever, or I don't feel like I'm progressing. And I feel like I'm pretty much always progressing up until we get to pit pushing, and then it's like it doesn't feel like I'm progressing as fast, right? But in terms of the leveling and progression you're talking about, feels good. Feels pretty solid all the way to 100. Once I get in the pits, it's like, oh, this is fun. I'm masterworking gear, and the dopamine's related to the gear masterworking. And then I have these moments of frustration where it's like I go and do Bramble Boss. He instantly starts one-shotting me the second I walk in. I walk to the left. He's enchanted with 4 different bosses. Lilith posed me into the other guy who's dunking me while Tomb Lord's doing the stupid beams. So it's like, okay, like I'm enjoying myself. Don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying myself. But randomly, it's like, does this boss really need Lilith right now? Does she really need Lilith in the middle of the boss fight? So every now and then I get a little bit frustrated. But outside of that, I'm fine with it.
I'm having a blast. Literally, I got one shot, not one shot. It was actually 3 mini hits on a pit boss in tier 55 on the first day when I was quite long awake and then tried my way of pushing to the Neath Iron range. And then I was like, oh, okay, I gotta actually respect the bosses. You actually have to dodge. There is no you can't just chill and play at this level. You die, right? You get punished for not dodging. I love that personally, but the overwhelming feedback I saw is that's too much. And we just moved away from one-shot mechanics on the bosses to a very, very good solution with the debuffs. And now people are getting one shot again.
Yeah.
For me, it's fine. I need to dodge. If I don't dodge, back to Kyowa shot. Wonderful. That is exactly what I want. But I hear so many people that don't like that. And I can agree. If you are playing, if you're not that competitive, I can fully agree that is not a fair mechanic. If there's, just like you said, you get pushed back. Maybe even the pushback is the worst thing because you lose control of your character, and then you get pushed into the next thing and pushed into the next thing and pushed into the next thing, and then you're dead. It's
Your
maybe a bit
bosses, I
too
feel
much.
like I feel like a skill issue in all the other bosses. When I'm dying in world bosses or Lilith, it's like, so be it, I suck. So be it, fully admit. But in the pit, when I'm doing the pit and I randomly get gadded, I just feel like it's cheesy. It's like, that's a cheesy horseshit. It's how I feel. I don't feel, maybe it is a skill issue, all right, but it feels like cheesy horseshit when I'm dying, So it's just kind of like, it's a little annoying. So I find myself getting a little bit annoyed on the occasion.
All right. So we're talking about the pit, right? So the pit obviously takes a lot of inspiration from Diablo 3's Greater Risk, which is kind of interesting because I remember playing, a decade of Diablo 3 and how we were complaining about Greater Risk being the only thing to do and how it's just like, oh man, I'm just sitting here for forever. And then all of a sudden it comes to D4 and everyone's praising the fact that it's Greater Rifts, right? And it's like, wait a minute, didn't we used to hate these Greater Rift cycles over and over again kind of thing? So I thought that was kind of funny because I was in that same category too, because I complain as well. But pit as content, especially like speed farming, actually kind of feels good to be able to get your items at the end and just focus on just the killing, right? Like not having to pick up items every like couple of seconds to drop on the ground. So like I just focus on killing stuff, which is what I want to do anyway. So that's fun. I'm probably in the different opinion of a lot of players when it comes to pit pushing. I actually do not enjoy the pit pushing. When I look at like others do it or when I do it myself, um, if there's anything that's very different between Greater Rifts and D3 and pit pushing in D4, Greater Rifts in D3 when you're farming is way different than pushing Greater Rifts at the high level. Like pushing Greater Rifts at the high level is a whole different game. D4, you push pit, it's kind of the same strategy as your speed farming. You're basically going straight to the elite. Hope that your gear is good enough to be able to survive standing still until the elite dies. And then you get to the pit boss, same ordeal, where basically, are you tanky enough to be able to take all the stuff so you don't have to move? And that's the strategy. And it just doesn't really give much skill expression at the higher ups for pits for me to kind of really be interested in like wanting to do that. And like I know that I'm probably in the minority of that, but it's like I look at that and I'm just like, oof, like there really isn't much strategy. It's just so straightforward and definitely just kind of like a really big gear check at the end of the day. Like when I watch the bar videos, the sort videos, the rogue videos, they're all doing the legit, literal, exact same thing at the high end. So it's just not really appealing. I mean, it feels great when you complete the level, obviously, but the gameplay getting there just seems so like stunted, in my opinion. But this is like the first version of Pit, so just like Greater Rifts in Diablo 3, the first iteration of Greater Rifts were awful, and we had trials that were terrible. So over time, Pit would get better, obviously. So it's not really a huge complaint, but I just don't really have that desire to push like I did in D3, where I felt like I had to, come up with a different strategy or more strategies to be able to conquer something other than, I got 8 ranks of Dark Shroud. I can just stand here and not worry about anything and just go forward. And then that's kind of it. And that's kind of what it looks like right now for me. But I do think Pit in general as an endgame content is really cool. It's a really cool cycle that's different than Nightmare Dungeons and the Hell Ties and things like that. So, but I hope they will continue to tune it and also do that. Sorry, this is a long rant. One more thing, I promise. The HP of the bosses versus the HP of the mobs in the Rift, way too big of a scale difference. Like, you could sit there and like even on Flurry, maybe get to the boss in like 5 minutes or whatever, right? But then on Flurry, you would never kill the boss because the boss has way more HP than what Flurry can really be able to achieve. So I really feel like Pit in general, especially when you're going higher and higher, really discredits a lot of builds that you may want to play, because it's like if you just don't do enough single target damage, then you just literally can't do the pits at the higher end, and like that's it. Like, and that part actually kind of just feels really, really awful. Like I don't want to fight a boss for 10 minutes but the pit, for 4 minutes. Like that's just I just think the scaling difference between the bosses and like the mobs are just way too big of a gap. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
I know that was long.
Yeah, that's fine. I discussed this actually at length already on my stream. Like, I guess it comes down to like, are you farming versus are you pushing, right? Right now, there's not really any incentive to push high, right? There's no reward, there's no leaderboard besides the community-made one like that we have on Maxor or something. People are asking for leaderboards, and I think it would be cool to have, similar to D3, for example, just to like see, who pushes high or whatever. I kind of disagree. It's not really skill-based. Maybe it's like less skill expression than we had in the past in D3, because we don't have these options like kite together enemies, play around pylons and whatever, right? So there's like less moving parts there, but I guess there's certainly skill expression possible in D4 as well in the pit right now. Maybe not on barbs, where, like the only strategy is stack 300k life and then thorns as much as possible. But yeah, in general, I guess there is certainly like an element there. But I guess the point is that, okay, are you farming versus are you pushing? And in farming, I think the boss HP is totally fine. You do like a 3-minute run, and then you kill the boss in like 30 seconds, 1 minute, or whatever, right? And this is okay. But then when you go to a push, you get to the boss in like 7 minutes, and you fight the boss for 8 minutes or something, right? Like, this is where we are at this point, with people like going the very high end, like, a pit 125 or whatever, right? It's like the bosses get so chunky because, well, you scale up all the monsters similarly in the dungeon, but your DPS goes up when you fight packs. But the DPS does not go up on the boss. You can only shoot at a single target so hard. But you can, pull more monsters. You can, time your stuff better when you fight elites compared to just like, blasting through them or something. So this is why that happens, and we don't have any mechanic or anything that avoids that from happening right now. In Diablo 3, they made the Bane of the Stricken that allowed us to actually kill bosses at all, because after like the first 1 or 2 seasons it became obvious that no one can kill bosses like whatsoever, because we had exactly the same problem. And I guess one solution could be just, I don't want to see it Bane of Stricken again necessarily, but they could just lower the timer. You know, like why is it 15 minutes? Why is it not just like 10? It was actually 10 on the PTR, right? And they increased it to 15 for whatever reason. But if the timer was shorter, then you would be forced to go lower tiers, and you can't push as high, and we would not run into those 8-minute boss fights. You could only have a maximum of, like, let's say, a 4-minute boss fight, because else you don't get there in time anyway. So I think that is probably like a decent solution to that.
I had the idea come up in chat that people say quite a lot actually, that you shift some HP from the boss to the mobs. So instead of fighting the boss for 8 minutes and the trash for 7 minutes, you have like 10 minutes of trash and 5 of a boss. Maybe
Yeah,
then
but
boss
but
does
the
not
point I was
feel
trying to
as
make though
obnoxious,
is,
right?
yeah, the point I was trying to make though is this only happens if you go for a push. If you look at a 15-minute run, like a push, you know, like a slow run, right? This only happens if you do that. If you farm, well, you fight the boss for like very little, right? And if you shift the HP, if you lower the boss HP across the board and then still scale them all the same way, then you're just gonna walk in and one-shot the boss at some point, right? In a farming run, and then you have no boss fight. And it's like a nightmare all over again. You just walk in, the boss does nothing and dies, boom. And I don't think that is really what we want, right? Like the boss fights in the pit are actually kind of the highlight of the run, I feel. It's like the cool part of the run. It's like, okay, I get there, you know, I blast a little bit, sure, but then comes the boss and I actually have to dodge a little bit, and I really like that. It makes pit distinctly different from anything else in the game, because the boss fights are actually boss fights. There's actually something going on, and that makes them cool. But if you lower the HP, then at least while farming, which you do like, you know, for like 30 hours until you get your Masterworking mats or whatever, you would never fight a boss if they have too low HP. So, do we really want to, like, you know, sacrifice that just so that we have like no 8-minute boss fights when you push? Like, who cares about pushing really?
But I think that's just kind of where the player base kind of determines whether a build is good or not, right? So like, whether we like it or not, whether, you know, we think it should be that way or not, people are going to compare classes based off of, you know, how high did that build or how high did that class push on a pit. Like I was reading the chat earlier and people were saying, oh, Sork is terrible now. Like, you know, but that's based off of high pit tier pushes, right? That's where people are comparing, you know, a class's power. And so, and then of course, you know, you have the issue of build balance, because of course that means that only builds with good single target will ever really be able to get there, and in that way. So I think it's an incredibly difficult thing to actually solve. Where, like you said, you don't want the bosses to be, you know, invalidated, where you never fight the mechanics. You know, like the mechanic, like the boss mechanics are actually kind of fun. Like I actually like fighting the bosses. But there is a degree where, you know, maybe if I'm not playing, you know, Heartseeker or something, I don't want to spend 9 minutes on that either. So there has to be some sort of a in between that kind of gives us, I won't say the best of both worlds, but I think it'll be incredibly difficult to try to balance that. But yeah, it's just sad to kind of see a lot of builds that, you know, maybe you want to take a little bit further, and the gap is just so large that, you know, it's like, oh, you don't have any good single target damage. Well, that is just too bad. You know, at the end of the day, you know, like that just feels awful. That really does. But I get what you're saying. I do.
I think one solution here that is like not as extreme as like Bane of the Stricken from Diablo 3 would be to scale the bosses less than the rest of the dungeon. So, you know, like let's say, I don't know what the number is, but let's say every pit here is like plus 20% HP, but you can make the boss only plus 19%. And this would kind of like accumulate exponentially to like not scale the boss as hard, and they would kind of like slowly, you know, kind of like fall behind the elite scaling basically that you do in the run, because that would actually give like some of those AoE based builds a kind of a way out to, like, you know, bring a high powered build to the pit and then, you know, still have a chance against the boss. You know, like a flurry or pulverize or like a blood surge. They're never gonna kill a boss on like 120. You know, they might get there, you know, in like 5 minutes or whatever, right? Hypothetically, but they will never have a chance to kill a boss. But, you know, if like the boss just doesn't scale as hard, that could be another solution here without really upsetting the balance between builds too much.
I agree with that for sure.
Wouldn't
Because
that
right
be
now
kind
it's like the single target damage is the only thing that really determines if a build is good or not in the pit, right? If you don't have single target damage, you cannot do a high tier build, period, right? Because the boss is always there and you always have to fight a boss. And if you don't, like, you directly scale which tier you can do based on your single target damage, basically.
Yeah. And like my chat usually in stream, especially when they're playing different builds, like they oftentimes switch builds just because of that one factor, and that one factor only, because pit is seen as like the ultimate end game, right? So it's like you don't want to play something that that doesn't accomplish the end game part of it, right? So like I get that a lot from like barrage players who love playing barrage, right? But then like you get to a certain tier of pit or like that, and like you're fighting a boss with a very small hurt box, and you're kind of you're kind of screwed, right? But they love playing the build, but they get to that point and it's like, oh man, I kind of want to be able to do a little bit higher level. And so like they like just for that one purpose only, they will respec to a different build. Even though barrage can do everything else, they get to that one moment and it's just like, I guess I'm playing Heartseeker, or I guess I'm playing Rapid Fire, and like that just feels awful that a generally good build at everything else, gets kind of chucked to the side because literally because of a boss fight in the pit, right? Like people are valuing that so highly when they're picking their builds to play in the game right now. Whether it should be that way, obviously can be debated or discussed, but like I think that's what the community is valuing their time or valuing what's good on a build is right now is based on the pit boss fight, right? That's kind of what it comes down to. So, but yeah,
I like the approach of making them scale 90% of what the mobs do, basically.
I like that too.
That was kind of the intention that I was trying to make with shifting the time that you need towards the mobs. Because at some point, if you scale it and scale it and scale it, then it's probably going to be 50-50 at some point. Usually, obviously, in the early stages, you don't want to just go in and one bonk the pit boss, because that is actually the most fun I had in quite a long time when doing any end game in D4. So yeah, but also a Bane of the Stricken, which is the more often you attack one target, the more damage you deal to it. It's also not a cool approach in my opinion, because then everybody needs to run it, and then it forces you into something that's also not a good idea, I think. But yeah, it's like you said it right, Dirkside. You said like the first iteration that we had of D3 Rift compared to what it is now, it's also crazy, right? And I think the first iteration of Pit actually pretty good in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
I'm really happy what we're getting.
I think they did, like, compared to where Greater Risks were initially versus where Pit is right now. Like initially, I think this is a much better starting point than where Greater Risks were at the when they were first introducing Diablo 3, which is why I'm not worried about it, right? Like I might have some discrepancies with it and say, okay, this part I like about it, this part I don't, but I'm not afraid, I'm not scared about it, I'm not worried about it. I think over time they'll look at the tuning of it and be like, well, maybe we want to see more builds be able to be complete slightly higher tiers than those kind of things. So like I'm sure they'll do some tuning to it in the future, but I think right now it's in a good state for its first iteration, but tuning definitely probably is necessary.
Yeah, I think in general though, like this whole like discussion about like tuning or like retuning the bosses and stuff is still like a somewhat niche problem. Because again, like there's no incentive right now to actually do a push, right? There's like no reason to do it. It's like an inefficient way of doing anything in the game. You really want to just like speed farm 3-minute runs or whatever, and this is how you get your materials, and this is the incentive, right? You never actually want to go and push, right? There's like nothing you really get. There's like a title reward at 100 and 150, okay, but whatever, right?
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm not chipping in right now on this one, because I'm on pit 79 and I'm not doing it because I don't know why I would spend all my time trying to retune my build to go to the higher pit, because I see other people doing it, but I don't see them getting materials like faster because of it. I see them spending longer in the pit every time. So it's like, why don't I just farm the one I can do? Like, I don't see any reason at all to push the pit at the moment. I do like Dioxide's point of where it feels a little bit of a bummer to have to build a single target if you do want to go through it, because I feel like what's the point of theoretically, like being good at blasting through to the boss. Like you make a build that's really good at like getting in there faster, you know, and AoEing down and all that. But then it doesn't really matter because you're gate kept by single target damage as well. Feels a little bit bad. But at some point I wonder, it's like maybe that's just like a core problem that's not really going to be solved. Whereas opposed to it's an ARPG, it's either going to have the power shifted to the mobs are going to be the hard part. Or it's going to be the boss that's the hard part. Like it could go either way. Now you have to have an AOE build as opposed to single target build. So I wonder the balancing. The 90% solution seems like a pretty decent solution. But like I said, I'm not really pushing pits very hard right now. The only part that's frustrating me is the Lilith. Getting randomly pulled in by Lilith while you're doing stuff is pretty annoying. Other than that, like I've been enjoying pits for the most part. That's really my only major complaint.
Lilith was
Yeah.
a struggle, guys. Can confirm.
I just seen your rip. Was that a one shot? Like literally?
Yes, yeah, I
It's
died
like
2 times this season,
75 just
both to Lilith Shadow. Yes, she's
was rough.
she's no joke for sure. But at least you know whenever there's a Lilith, shit's going to get real. So that's that's for sure. No, I just didn't know she was there. That was my problem. Anyway,
Also,
Yeah, I know.
there's good points about visual clarity. Maybe it's a skill issue on my side, but I feel like I can't really see things very well. The circles from the guy is a giant red circle. The Uber Tomb Lord squares are giant red shit. The Lilith is giant red beams. Everything's the same color and the same transparency level. And when they stack on each other, Lord help you. So that plus I'm playing from Alaska and my ping is 80 to 111 no matter what game I'm playing. So I feel like combine these issues of like I have to be able to tell visually what's going on, have the reaction time, be able to dodge, stand in the little spot that doesn't have the red shit. Like sometimes my brain just can't process the stuff that fast. You know what I mean? So that part would be nice to have a little bit more clear. Maybe each of the bosses have a different color. The first one that's enchanted is green, then red, then blue, so I can see how many of them there are at least. I don't know.
It's actually color stuff is actually a good idea. Also,
Yeah.
I had to teach my chat. You can actually increase, which is unfortunate for console players. You can increase the vibrance of your monitor from 50% to 70%, and that makes actually a huge difference. So basically, my chat is loving it. You should go and try this in the NVIDIA control panel. You just right-click your main monitor, and you can go to a setting. You increase the digital vibrance to 70%, and then you are hacking.
wait, what does
Does
that
it
do?
change the?
You see the difference of the colors way better, but that should not be the solution for the game.
I'll do this. You said this is in control panel, NVIDIA control panel.
Yeah, I'll show you right after DM. Sure.
All right, I'll do
Yeah,
that then.
the
'cause
secret
it's an issue for me.
technology here.
Secret technology. And your stream doesn't even know about it because only you see it on your screen.
Could have
but
saved me
that
2 characters
actually-
already.
That's actually helping. I was always playing with that because WoW stuff, and it helped there too. And it does here as well. If I go back to the normal settings, I'm like, could as well turn off the monitor. I don't see anything. Any difference. And you get like, you have the ground separated from the red stuff way easier. But if everything is red, then yeah, even that doesn't help you at all.
All right. Okay, I think I had enough about the pit. I want to talk about the class balance as well. Like, how do you feel about that right now? Like, are you happy with where it is? Do you think like stuff should more be on the barb side, or stuff should be more on the sork side, or like where we at here?
For me, it's crazy that whatever we do, wherever we place the barb on the max roll tier list, they still end up on top. That's crazy to me. For one season, I thought it's going to be my class, and we almost convinced everyone that it's going to be necromancers, and it still can't come out on top. And the crazy thing about this is, barb works normally, from what I know, even with the small patch hiccup that wasn't even in the game anymore. They are working as intended, and rogues are double dipping victimize on multiple places and are struggling to keep up. I'm not even talking about necromancers anymore. I'm like, there's literal bugged builds trying to keep up with a class that works as intended. That is crazy to me. Sorry,
So
rant over.
when we talk about
I'm still happy.
when we talk about class balance, right? Like I think at this point, like balance in terms of like what content, like specifically, like so let's say we just take out we take out the pit, and then the class balance or the tier list all of a sudden changes like quite a bit because obviously more HP, right? So if we're talking about open world, balanced, then a lot of classes can do basically almost anything. You put torment bosses into the equation, there are definitely some differences. You put pit into the equation, there's definitely big differences, right? With that, so like when we say class balance, what are we balancing, or what is the balance for per se in general, like which particular content for that. But that's probably getting a little too technical. But the thing is I actually really, in my opinion, I actually want to see the numbers come down. I know we always want to kind of say, oh, I want to be as strong as like, the barbarian creating or hitting for, multiple, millions or billions or whatever that they do, right? But it's like I feel like the numbers are just so extreme right now in general. They like it's just the numbers just seem so like just I won't say worthless, but it's just like, man, why are we creating for billions? Why are we creating for millions, right? Like, if there's anything I like about last Epoch is like the damage numbers were like realistic, right? They were realistic and they were fun to look at because they were reasonable. Right now it's just so off the scale. We're back to D3 terms again. So, honestly,
Just
I would
play
like to see a
Druid.
big.
You can hit 17 damage.
Chat also
I
just said
honestly,
just turn off the damage numbers. Problem
turn
solved.
off the damage numbers. Well, I mean, seeing your damage numbers go up is a part of progression in an action RPG in general, right? It's like, oh, I put on this piece of gear, I see a higher number than I did before. That gives you a dopamine hit. It feels good, right? That's always been like a traditional thing in all action RPGs. Imagine playing a J or RPG and not having damage numbers on at all. Like that would be so weird, right? You want to see those numbers in that case, especially when you're progressing. Once you're min max, you may not care, but when you're progressing, you want to see that change. But yeah, I honestly just want to see a big stat squish, man, and then kind of like rebalance things around much lower numbers than the numbers we have currently right now.
I mean, that's more of an expansion thing anyway, so maybe that's even already coming in the expansion, I imagine. Like, it would not be a bad idea to, like, just generally lower the, the multipliers or whatever, right, across the board and rebalance stuff. And I guess we're gonna see, like, an updated Paragon system, you're gonna see updated Glyph system or whatever, right? As this stuff has not been touched at all, for example. So, there's definitely, like, a lot of opportunities to change that across the board.
I just want to say Druid feels terrible. But you know what? I've been feeling that way for 4 seasons. So
Yeah.
it is quite
But,
alright. I mean,
but do you
weirdly,
feel terrible because you're weaker than Barbs?
No, because I mean, like, to be honest, I don't really care too much. Like, if another class is stronger than me, all I know is like I'll be playing the Were-Nado, and somehow it feels worse, like this season than any other season. It's like, why am I feeling weak as fuck, dude? Like, why do I have to watch everybody else destroy this fucking Uberloth, but I'm up here like struggling on my 3rd day in a row to try to kill it with Were-Nado. I don't know. Maybe I need to switch over to Boulder or something. But then I did try playing Boulder, and then the rock just disappears. And it's like, nope, you don't get to have the rock. It's all right. Forget it. I want to use the rock, I guess. So maybe I got to do Lightning Storm. I don't know. I'm Pulverized Druid, still dog shit. So it is what it is. I'm probably going to switch to a different class. Windshear? I've been hearing about that one. Yeah.
Have you seen Woody do that? That's insane.
No, I haven't seen the Windshear.
Windshear
People keep telling me.
Yeah, it's a good build. You should try it.
I'm gonna try it.
I mean,
people keep telling me OP.
I mean, for balance and stuff like that too, man. I think Blizzard. I mean, granted, coding is hard. I get it, but like, just way too many bug things tend to just make it through each season, which kind of makes it difficult to actually balance stuff, right? Obviously, rogues are, or at least let's say Heartseeker, for example, right? Heartseeker and Pinshot are only competitive or in the line of where Rapid Fire is because of victimized double dipping, right? Like if that didn't exist, it'd be a little bit of a different story. But it's like it's hard to really get a balance in general until we can actually squash a lot of the bugs to kind of see where the builds actually truly lie before we can actually make adjustments to them. And that's this. I think Blizzard has been struggling with just trying to get classes and builds to perform, the way they should, or builds to perform the way they should without the bugs, right? So I think that just need to be fixed first. I mean, even on the rogue right now, like, again, victimize is bug, precision is still bugged from the last season. Close quarters combat has a small bug too as well. So like, you play rogue, you're playing something bugged, no matter what. Like, you can't not play anything that's not bugged. And it's just frustrating that like we're useful as a class because we have a bug somewhere or a couple of bugs together that worked in some sort of tangent, right? So like, yeah, I mean, class balance, I think is going to be something that is going to take a while for them to actually kind of get. And because right now, again, bug fixes, they're all over the place.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, if the game was actually working as, expected, if like, tutors were accurate and, mechanics weren't broken, double dipping, or just not working at all, or, scaling in some unintended ways. And like, there's so many examples that we had. Like, Twisting Blades is probably like one of the biggest examples, right? Like, that's just was so unexpectedly like such a much stronger build than everything else, just because it had like 3 different bugs stacked on top of each other, and now they finally fixed them, and now the build is kind of performing where it's supposed to be, right? If you look at the numbers. And it's like, okay, now it's actually like some kind of like mid-tier, somewhat okay build, right? And it's not like the craziness that we had at the start. And a lot of people say, oh, I miss TB, but technically TB is still there. You can still play it. It's just not as good as like some of the other builds because you have the Heartseeker bug now, or like the Victimize thing, right? And so on, right? If those were fixed, then there would actually be like better balance across the board. I guess we have the problem that, for example, Barbs, as far as I know, at least the top builds, Bash and Spawns, are actually working as intended. And we have like, okay, like they're intended to be like 15 tiers better than other classes in the pit, right? So that's kind of like where we're at right now. And this, I guess this is problematic. And a lot of people are always saying like, oh man, Barbs have 4 weapons and it's impossible to balance that. Honestly, I kind of disagree with that. Like, it's probably a reason why it's imbalanced. I think it's mostly just bad balancing, though. It doesn't have to do with, like, 4 weapons being impossible to balance. I think they just, like, miscalculate this or whatever, right? I think they just have bad balancing when it comes to Barbs. Like, they could just tune down many things. It doesn't have to be, like, remove weapon slots or give other classes more weapon slots. They just made Barb-specific stuff too crazy on top of the 4 weapons. So they can always adjust that. In fact, they have done that with glyphs, right? The Barb glyphs are weaker than other glyphs from other classes. But you can just do that again, for example, or whatever, right? Something similar. You can nerf the legendary Paragon nodes and whatnot. You can nerf the key passives. Something Spark specific, and you could bring them in line. But for some reason, they're never doing that. They just keep buffing it. So, I don't know.
For me, it's actually, I'm quite happy that we don't have that many game-breaking things currently. I think we have one of the few, one season where there is not that much stuff going around breaking things. I don't know. Am I wrong here? Is that just a feeling? I don't know. It's like, I remember way crazier bugged builds in other seasons, and now I don't know. What is there really?
There's one
Victimize,
bug
double dipping?
that's breaking game, not that I've seen, but
like
in terms
making
of
it too strong.
We don't have
right?
game-breaking
Like,
bugs like Bulwark, right? We had like Season 0 Bulwark, where like,
Bulwark,
literally, like, you didn't need anything. You could kill anything in the game because it was scaling with the monster level and these kind of things, right? So we don't have that, at least right now, outside of Holy Bolts, I suppose. People are abusing Holy Bolts for that. But this is like an item that's technically available to everyone, practically mostly for the Necros, I guess. But anyway.
Doesn't it only work with minion scaling, though?
Yeah,
the way it works?
I think it's
maybe
mostly,
it could work with
mostly with
companion.
minions. I didn't really feel like it's good on rogues, for example, but that's a different story. I guess it's just like an item that I have to fix and that's it. But yeah. At least there's nothing game-breaking, like, okay, someone is just crushing Pit 200 that has, like, quadrillions of life or whatever, that no one else could ever even dream about to get to. Like, you're probably not even gonna see, like, 150, like, a legit clear or something, right? And then, like, another 50 tiers from there. So that could have happened with another game-breaking bug like Bulwark, but so far it has not happened, as far as I'm aware. So that's good, at least.
There's one bug that please, for the love of God, Blizzard, please fix this. The one bug is Lilith randomly deciding not to die. So she gets to 1 HP in phase 1, and then she's just like, nope, I ain't gonna die. And she becomes literally immortal and will not die. I don't know what's proccing it, but it's about 1 out of 4 attempts. She would just refuse to die and stay in phase 1 literally forever with 1 HP. And it's still happening. It's been in the game since the launch of the game. Be
Oh, you mean
lovely if they could fix that.
when she throws the infinite waves at you over and over again?
No. She'll literally stay at 1 HP. Like in phase 1, if something will happen and she cannot die or be staggered, she'll play like normal, but she cannot die. She'll just sit
Interesting.
there with infinite HP.
I've
and will
never
not be
heard of
staggered.
that actually.
It happens all the time. It happens to me probably 5 to 6 times a day because it's about 25% proc rate. I think it has to do with how much you damage her within a certain time period that will happen, but it happens very consistently with me. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I know that there are some bugs when you like nuke her through one of the phases into the next phase, for example, or so. So that could be related to that. So, but yeah, this is just like a bug that I have to fix, I guess.
All I meant with all of this is like we're moving in a great direction, in my opinion, because we had the low life bulwark, we had the ball lightning doing crazy things, we had all of those, and to be honest, that's not really craziest bug right now is victimized double dipping. I think that's fair. I think that's totally fine.
Yeah,
And
it's not a huge deal, I guess, in terms of bug builds, but
it's
at
not
least
exactly.
But I guess like what we talked about earlier is like there are consistently these bugs making it into the game like every single season, right? Okay, they're not as crazy anymore. I guess it's getting better, but it's still like, okay, you know, victimized builds are just like, you know, 50% better or 100% better than they should be. And, you know, like Sorks have the opposite problem, right? Sorks are generally weak right now, but it's also because they have certain multipliers that don't apply in the full value, right? So they're missing like a third of the damage or something, right? So if those bugs were actually fixed, then I guess the balance would actually be much better, right? Outside of like some builds just being overtuned as hell. So you can always adjust those at some point. They tried with the patch notes coming on Tuesday, but then people yeah, talked about the barb a lot and then they backpedaled, I guess. But anyway, so it's like, yeah, but in general, I would like to ask a question. Do we want a balance that is more in the direction of Bash Barb and Thorns Barb, or more in the direction of Sork, I guess? Where we at with that, you know? But would it be better if all classes were on a Sork level or on a Barb level?
How about Druid? Can we balance it? Druid's favorite? Can Druid be number 1? Why does it have to be Barbarian?
Yeah, I'm just like talking at the two extreme ends, you know? Like we have like number 1.
Yeah.
I guess Druid is like kind of on the same level as Sork. It's kind of both towards the bottom right now, so Druid is the same, I guess. So where do we want to go, though?
Everyone loves playing Barb because you're just so strong. Everyone wants to feel that way. It might not be our favorite choice, maybe, but I don't know, that's just fun. Like being OP, doing the crazy stuff. But I mean, if everyone is at kind of the same level, then I mean, if you're clearing 120 pit and everybody else is doing 120 pit, that's fine. Or if it's only 70 pit now, I think that for me that would be ideal. Like if we could just all maybe be in like 5 to 10 tiers of each other with the best build of a class, that would be insane. If that is 160 pit or if that is 80 pit, for me it doesn't matter if the number what the number is.
I think though, like to piggyback a little bit off of what you're saying, you know, like everyone's gonna like if you had a choice between that, like everyone's gonna want to feel as strong as a barb. Like no one's gonna be like, oh man, I want to hit for less numbers like the Sork, or you know, or struggle a little harder like the Sork, right? But like in terms of like the game health per se, like if we want to extend the season or feel like we have more to do, where it feels like you have more of a progression, going the way of the Sork kind of makes more sense, because then you have to feel like you have to try, like you have to actually try to do things on the Sork to kill things and stuff, right? So that would probably be better for the game. But you know, I think for most players, or you know, if you can just, you know, OP, you know, tap everything, you know, I think people would obviously gear towards it and towards the bar. But I see both sides though. I mean, it is an action RPG, you know, it's okay to feel OP, but at the same time, it's like if you want your content to mean something, if you want the, you know, like I said, like the content to actually mean something, then kind of where Sork is at, it would be better for the game, in my opinion.
don't mind a class being overpowered. I do mind the same class being overpowered every season. That's where I'm at with it. It's like I'm okay with like having a class that's better than others for a season. I know perfect balance is something that all games struggle with. I just, if I have to see Barb be like god tier in season 12, then like I'm gonna lose my mind. It's just good, really fucking good. Holy shit, they're OP. Good. It's like, okay, I get it. Should have played the Barb. Joke's on me.
I mean, don't forget about season 0 and season 1. They were basically not in the game, okay? They had their fair share of struggling, but at this point, they also had their fair share of being the thing, right? Like, there needs to be some back and forth, right?
I don't know.
Right.
I
To
can
that.
only say I've played Barb the most after Rogue, my main, and I've never died on hardcore with a Barb. I've never died with a Barb in this game, period. Not in the beta, not now, not ever. I've only deleted Barbs. So that's all I can say. I don't think they had really a huge struggle anywhere along the way. So I've lost many other characters, but never a Barb so far. Maybe I'm jinxing myself, but this is what I can say.
There's classes out there that have struggled since day one.
You're also probably not going to die this season on a Barb, Woody.
With 300k HP, I kind of doubt it, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
You're doing it wrong, chat says. Okay,
Yeah,
apparently.
I can
Apparently
read
I'm
that
supposed
too.
to die with a Barb.
You're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just about the hardcore dying on the class or something. It's just that, I don't know, like, I get what DM is saying, like, one class is being OP or, like, at the top every single time is kind of bad. And on the other hand, I also really dislike this whole mentality of, man, Barbs were OP for so many seasons, now we're gonna nerf them into the ground, no one should play Barb, and now you're gonna make Sork OP because they were down bad for, like, this season or that season. And I think that's also, like, the wrong approach. I think that the goal should always be to have a somewhat balanced, selection. Like, you can play this class or that class and put, probably even multiple builds on them. Maybe you have, like, 50 builds, 60 builds. I don't know how much we have on Maxwell by now, right? We have so many builds, and we don't even cover every single, like, variation or build or that it could be done, right? There's still more stuff to discover and still more builds to make. And there are a lot of builds, and there's just such a gap between them. Like, there's, like, the Pulverized Druid and there's the Windshade Druid, and they need to be kind of closer together, right? And then the classes need to be overall closer together. So there just needs to be, like, more tuning, and then it would be much better if you just have options and it doesn't feel like, man, like, I want to play a Bloodlands Necro, right? And, like, look at Bloodlands. Like, you just can't play it really if you have any aspirations for the pit. Like, even 61s is going to be a struggle, right? So this is, like, the point where it's like, if you can't even farm 61 comfortably on, like, an optimized Bloodlands build, then I really don't want to touch that build, right? Like, I can't even get my Neve Iron. So that is at least the point that every build should reach. And after that, it's, like, somewhat optional. If some is a bit better, some a bit stronger or weaker, like, it doesn't matter too much, I guess. But yeah, we do have these kind of scenarios where it's just like, man, like, that build, yeah. Charge
Love
bolts.
it. I would love it to be balanced. Yeah, I agree. I would love it if they were all like somewhat healthily, equally balanced. Do I believe that's ever going to happen? Probably not. Probably not. I feel like this is probably the closest we've seen it. Like, there's definitely some classes that seem stronger than the other, but they don't seem like, I mean, I don't see wild disparities right now, like Holabar. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like at least it's somewhat closer.
Yeah, it's not as crazy as it was, but yeah. I guess it's generally, like, for considering how much they've changed the entire game, right? With, like, the itemization changes, we're actually in a pretty good spot balance-wise, I would say. So, yeah. Maybe we're, like, need to cut them some slack there.
I fully agree, yeah.
Better than before, yeah.
All right. Well, that was basically all of the topics that we had for the podcast so far. So I have, like, one open-end discussion point, which would be, what about the future? So where do we go from here? Like, next season, what would you like to see? What do you think about expansion? What would you like to see there potentially, or anything like that? If there's anything on your mind, now is the time.
Paragon boards for crying out loud. They're so outdated now compared to everything else. like they're like the like base concept of Paragon boards is cool, but like it's gotten to the point now because of the optimization and things that you skip a lot of things and you're just looking for some damage reduction, I guess, in Paragon boards, and that's it. Like even the glyphs, for the most part, the primary um stat on the glyphs you don't even care about anymore. Like you're looking for secondaries because those are usually multiplicative. Like, and then of course, while we have a rare glyphs, we don't even have legendary glyphs. We don't have any like glyphs that actually changes the way we do anything. So like Paragon boards are just so completely outdated versus the rest of the game currently. So like in like season 5 or something, I would like to see a big like Paragon rework where glyphs actually change the way a skill functions, or a legendary node actually does something of that similar nature versus just more damage or damage reduction. It's just kind of cool concept, just kind of boring right now, and just doesn't really fit with the new itemization direction that they're going.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree with that.
I just give me leaderboards, please. Leveling and who kills the bosses the first. That's at this point, that's literally all I want.
Correct. This was the happy blaster.
I'm just really just give me a leveling leaderboard and just a bossing leaderboard. Who did it the first time, and then you can retire them and then make it like who did 1 to 100 the fastest, who did throughout the season, right? Like who killed Varshan the fastest. Like if you want to reuse them and don't have like them active for just a day or so because then they're filled, you should recycle them at some point. And then of course all the other stuff we mentioned, armory, paragon, skill tree, all of that. But for me personally, please give me leaderboards. I would be so happy.
I like streamlining of the social systems personally. Stuff like what I mentioned with the Durio weight room, making the clan system have a little bit more ease of access. Be like, I'm trying to find a party for Durio within your clan. And it's like, hey, does anyone want to do it? Pings it something, way to join people. I feel like some streamline of the social systems would be a nice addition. I don't know if it's necessarily tons of content, but it is something that I think people would enjoy. They seem to be making the game more social. I mean, stuff like the Blood Maiden, for instance, the Gauntlet, you can do 4 players, etc. It seems like interacting with people also has an efficient, like economical benefit with things like making sure you're not wasting your stones, so you get other people to have it, etc. So it would seem to me to make sense to streamline that process for people. I don't know if I necessarily want like a LFG. Like I kind of want to avoid menus where we just click a button and instantly get teleported there, and all of that's out of it. But ways to interact with people a little bit easier in the overworld or naturally meeting people would be something I would enjoy. Also in SSF mode.
Ooh, SSF mode. I want that too.
Probably coming. I don't know if you saw the interview, but it was a pretty heavy hint on that one.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
cool to have, especially for like community events, or if they ever introduce like these leaderboards that Chronix is asking for, right? Like SSF races are really the only races that are exciting for me, and I think for most of the community as well, right? Like every event, every gauntlet in PoE or whatever, they're all SSF. They're all hardcore. This is what matters. This is what's fun to see, what's fun to play, what's fun to watch. And if that is ever gonna be a thing, I mean, I'm gonna run an event like every week or something, right? Like you can do so many things if you only have that thing, right? Because it just like cleans it up so nicely to have like any kind of competition. So yeah, that's gonna be cool. So
yeah, I'm gonna like that a lot too.
Can
I'd be happy about that.
Can basically also extend that kind of to like give us the option of these PoE mini events where you can create your own server. You not only SSF, right? We kind of need like a fresh start of an account as well somehow, because well, if I'm SSF and I'm trying a race and I start with 1 billion gold and 7 Stygian stones, then right, you kind of need it. I want full SSF, completely separate from everything else, and then
yeah,
who
like
knows? Maybe
the
even
private
maybe
leagues
even
from
get some
PoE,
special
right?
rules. Yeah, exactly. Maybe even be able to do some special rules, right? Like DMU, remember the event that we had at the end of season 2? I think everyone really, really enjoyed it. Everyone involved, everyone who's watching it, that was quite a lot of fun. I had a blast. Chat was happy. That was great.
Yeah,
that
actually,
was fun, the shoutcast, actually. That went really well.
Yeah, when I visited them like during BlizzCon, I actually talked about the private leagues with Joe Pipiora at some point, like for a little bit. So it seems like there might be something coming. I don't know. Like it seemed at least open to the idea, and apparently like there was an interview lately where they mentioned SSF or something. So I've not seen that. But yeah, I mean, maybe gonna get that. I think that would be badass. You know, even if like most people don't use that feature, at least for the community, you know, streamers and like like that's like participating in an event like this, right? Like a lot of people go to play a PoE gauntlet, and they just try to see how far they get, right? They might not be hardcore players normally, they might not be SSF players normally, but so many people just try it, just give it a run and see how it goes or something, or maybe get a prize at the end or whatever, right? So it's just cool, it doesn't have to be like a full-time hardcore SSF blaster thing. It can even be like just this one weekend here and there or whatever, right? And we can make our own events, we can make our own rules and whatever. So that would be it'll be such a boon to like the longevity of the community and the game, right? You can always just, you've blasted a game for like a month, and now we do like a big event, like a max roll gauntlet or something. Like there's so many possibilities. Like it would be amazing. So I really hope they're gonna do that.
I don't know. I think not everyone has to play in the NFL to go and watch the Super Bowl, right? It's exactly the same thing for me. Even if you maybe have never touched a football in your life, you're still gonna go watch the Super Bowl, no matter how involved you are, right? I don't know. I think it's always a great event. I'm not saying we're the Super Bowl or whatever. I'm just trying to make a comparison here. I think it's always fun to watch people that do that and have an event going on. It's always some kind of feeling in the air that is, I don't know. I think it's a good thing to have when you watch Race to World First and World of Warcraft. I don't even play the game anymore, but I tune in. It's great, right? You can establish a similar thing in D4 for sure.
Yeah. Any other features though that you would like?
Armory.
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 Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's something I was going to
Armory,
mention
for
as well.
sure. Yeah, dude. Like, so, like, to be 100% honest with you, like, despite the fact that like Flurry is F tier build, right? I love playing Flurry. It's a fun build, and like, if I can just, I mean, of course, I could probably just level another rogue and just kind of do it that way. But if I can just switch, like, for like, let's say Helltide farming, just switch to Flurry just for Helltide farming, I definitely would, because it's actually like really good at doing that, right? So like there are builds that I typically would play more of that might be more niche at doing certain things that I'd be more willing to play if I had an armory and not have to reset my entire Paragon board and spend 30 minutes changing out all this stuff and then go play the thing to do the thing. So an army of some sort I think would be very beneficial to the game.
Would love
Yeah.
an armory. I would love. There's multiple builds I would love to be able to play without having to struggle between swapping them. For sure, agreed.
Yeah, it's also like, I guess these days it's like a different philosophy with like how we approach builds and like how the game is designed. It's like before, like respeccing was hard and costly, and even getting the items to make a build took forever, and like the journey to 100 was like 50 hours if you were fast or whatever, right? Now journey to 100 is really quick, and like getting the items is no problem at all, and all that stuff, right? And now it's like you just specialize your builds a lot more, right? You don't just have to play that one build and stick to it. Like you can make the pulverized build for Helltides and then the Vinci build for the bosses. And yeah, if you have like the option to like swap between them, I guess it also doesn't matter that much then if like the build balance is like somewhat upset. You have like this one speed build and this one bossing build and this one pit build. And yeah, why not, right? If there's like, the top builds on a class. On the other hand, you would kind of like force people to like swap between them much more, because I guess it's only gonna increase in specialization, right? You're gonna increase the specialization of like how good is pulverized at AoE farming, and we're gonna increase our boss builds, like single target specialization over time with like more options, more aspects that are gonna introduce more uniques that allow us to burst down bosses faster, right, or whatever, right? And at that point, it's also like, do you really want to like move in that direction where like universal builds are just bad, basically? Because it's mediocre at everything. And then you have like hyper specialized builds. You have like the Helltide build, you swap to that. And then, okay, and World Boss is coming, I'll swap to my boss build. Okay, I'm going back to Helltide, I'll swap it back to my Pulverize. And like, do we want that? Is that actually how it's supposed to go? It feels like very naturally free. And the question is like, yeah, is that good for the game? So this is like what I think about this.
I wouldn't say like supposed to go, but more so just having the option to. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're saying like, you know, it is easier to get to level 100 and like, you know, just make another rogue for that particular build and stuff. Like, you know, for the players sitting in this chat, like that's the norm, right? But like again, for people who have way less time than we do to, you know, to play the game that's really not really much of an option like for that. So like maybe they want to play multiple different builds, but you know, like us swapping gear and us swapping Paragon boards, we might can do that in like 30 minutes. For someone else it might take like an hour and a half. Pull up a website, you know, maxroll.gg, by
Correct.
the way. Yeah, right. Pull up a website, follow every Paragon point there, follow all the instructions there. Like that's just a lot for like a you know, average player to want to do just to make the swap
Completely agree.
to try something. Yeah. So I see what you're saying, that, you know, maybe we don't want to have like a bunch of specialized builds, but I also do feel that not having an armory detours, you know, us from playing something that may not be S tier, because it's like, well, why am I going to spend time, you know, building something that can't do everything versus
Yeah.
building
That's
something that can? You
I
see
mean,
what I'm saying? Like, you
just to be
know,
clear,
yeah.
like I don't mean to say that they should not make an armory. I agree, armory would be a very good system. I guess it's more the question like how should it work, right? Like,
I
do
got
you
you.
want to
Okay.
have it like D3 where I think you can save 10 different setups or something and you swap between them for free at any moment? Or for example, do you have only 2 slots or do you have only 3 slots per character? And does it maybe cost a fee to like, you know, set it up, or does it cost a fee to switch to it? So you don't have to do it between like every single world boss, you know, switching to a single target setup, one shot the world boss, going back to the Helltide build, and then, you know, you do a pit run. Okay, I'm swapping to my pit build, you know. Like, I think that is too crazy. And I also see a lot of
I
people
just
in chat kind of agreeing with that. A lot of people say they want to switch all the time. I can understand why, because it's efficient. But I don't think it would be very fun. Like that crazy amount of switching, you know? It's fine to do this saving a build and switch. But I think, for example, if there's like a somewhat noticeable cost, not a crazy cost, but, you know, something that doesn't make you switch between world bosses, you know? Basically.
I
Sorry,
just
Dylan.
want the
I'd be okay with that.
ability. I want the ability to be able to save my build, because I very much appeal to what Dioxide was saying, which is the switching is actually a pain in the ass for me. Like, I don't switch builds very often. I'll go like one, maybe I'll try a new build. I tried Boulder Stone and I didn't like it because it was bugged, so I had to redo everything back to the other one, which felt terrible having to go all the way back. Yes, we have the scroll amnesia, which resets everything, but it's the clicking and doing all this horseshit. So you guys just told me to do wind shear. You know the reason I'm like, I don't want to do fucking wind shear. It's because if I don't like it, let's just say even if it's better, I just don't have fun with it. I only play to have fun. So if I don't like the way the wind shear is, I'm going to play the factually worse build because I like it more. But the process of having to go from, okay, I tried wind shear, now I want to go back to what I had, is what pisses me off. It's not that I feel like I need 13 different min-max things. I want to be able to revert so that I don't have to do it again. Just let me save what it was. I don't need 5 different options. I need a revert, like save my current iteration. And if I only get one build, so be it. Okay, I like wind shear better than tornado. This is my new main base build. Save this as my one instance. So I can always revert back to whatever I have is what I want.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was getting
That's
at.
fair.
Like, I wholeheartedly agree with this, and I also kind of like what Darkside said, right? He would like to play like a flurry build here, but still have like a good build so he can actually farm the pit or something. And yeah, like if you have like limited slots and you can just save a certain layout, and then, you know, like there's like maybe a cooldown, maybe there's a cost or something, but, you know, for the intention of trying a new build or, you know, whatever, like what DM has explained, I think that would be optimal. And it shouldn't be like in D3. Like in D3, it's like too crazy, I feel, where it's just like, okay, you do bounties, now you swap your entire build to like the bounty build, and then you do normal rifts, you swap to your normal rifts build. And like, you know, I would like to have, you know, some kind of consistency in my build at least, right? And it shouldn't feel like I have to do this just to be more efficient or something all the time. So it's like a cooldown, a cost, whatever, like, you know, any kind of thing would work to like prevent us from like swapping every 5 minutes. But for that purpose, it would be really great to have armory. What DM explained.
Yeah, I'd be fine with the cooldown or a cost associated with it. So therefore, there is, you know, you're having to give up something for that feature or that thing because it is doing something. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, DM.
I was just gonna say, I just maybe even if you tie to amnesia scrolls, where it's like if I have a scroll, I can revert to what I was, and that's the currency or something. I'm okay with being limited. I don't need to do it 15 times, but I would like to be able to do it a couple times because I would like to try. Right now, I have a druid. It's not Giga Chatted geared out. He's okay. And I want to try Lightning Storm because I think it sounds fun. I don't care if I push the higher tier. I want to try Wind Shear because you guys are saying it'll be better on probably single target. I'm struggling with Lilith. And I would like to try Boulder when it's no longer bugged and actually fucking does something. And so the only thing I don't want to do is have to redo literally everything to go back to the tornado. So just give me some way of saving or some cost. I'll pay whatever the cost is. I just don't want to have to click a million times again. Even if I do have all day and I do it for a living, I still don't want to click a million goddamn times, bro.
I think we all agree that there needs to be a cost and a pretty hefty one at that. Yeah, you can't do like 50 gold, right? You need, I don't know, the current state, maybe 10 million or something like that. Or a cooldown that it's like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours to prevent that efficiency swapping that is going to go crazy. Because if you give us the option, I'm sure as hell going to give you 5 builds that do. I'm even going to make you a town build if you want to that has like super fast movement speed to efficiently get you from the occultist to the blacksmith, right? If I need to, and we want to prevent that. And the big problem is hitting this fine line, and I don't really envy the developers having to do that. For me, it's like impossible. For me, it's such a fine line to go from literally optimizing your way from the vendor to the blacksmith, and but then okay, just from the other extreme, just going back to what I had because I don't like the build that I think that second part that I said, I think that is the important thing that we need to find a fix for, because that is probably preventing also a lot of people from trying out builds because they're what happens? I want to keep playing, but what happens if I don't like this new build? You've maybe seen a video, you've maybe seen a stream, but you're like, I don't know how it feels. You know, you switch to it and you go like, oh God, okay, now gotta go all the way back. I'll see you next season. You know, that needs to be fixed. And not really the other side, right? And the scrolls was a pretty good idea in my opinion. I have like
You get
7 of
limited
them.
number of those.
Yeah, I
you
have
get
like
fairly
7 of them,
limited.
I think. I'm not using those. I'm just refund all. Fine. Okay. Perfect example. Scrolls, save what I have, or like go back to the previous one, something like that. And then 7, I think that's fine. I don't really need more than that per character. Maybe.
New town build just dropped. Log in. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Chronix,
I'm
you're
just-
booked for writing the guide. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
S-
just
S
saying,
tier
like,
town
right?
build.
If you give us
Yeah.
the option, we would even do that, right?
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah,
I
true.
just have to press my armory hotkey and literally just click, I do that.
I
I
mean,
need to do that.
You
like
gave it.
talking about the
different ball.
cost, right? Talking about the cost, they could literally make the cost the same that it would cost to respec all the points one by one, right? Like you have like,
Yes.
I don't know, if you refund all paragons, like 4 million gold or something. If you refund all the skills, it's like 2 million gold or whatever, right? They can literally make the cost that, so at least it's like the same cost, like the same efficiency, quote unquote, without the clicking, right? So it could be that, and as simple as that. And I think that would be fair, for example.
Or you could even make it like I say, revert only, where it's the only
Yeah.
thing you can do is go back to what you had. Like you have to manually place everything for the new build. No one's going to manually place everything for the new build in order to min-max their efficiency. Okay, let me go delete all my points, set up a new build, now go do world boss. People aren't going to do that, right? But they will try a new build to see what they like. So it kind of caters more to like casuals or people that want to try a new build. Then you can revert back. It's like, I don't like it type save situation, as opposed to let me save a bunch of different snapshots. Because even with a cost, players that have been playing forever, they're going to be able to cover the cost regardless. So they're just going to be like, okay, I'll pay the fee. Now let me go to my snapshot. But if you don't let them snapshot the future ones, just the ones that you've had, then it would cater only to the people that want to try something new.
Yeah, fair. I guess there's many ways to do this. But I guess it's probably reasonable to expect that there would be some kind of restriction at base of it, right? I'm pretty sure they're already working on it anyway. I wouldn't be too surprised that Season 5 just brings the armory, and then I guess we're gonna see it soon or something anyway. Like, I think this is a
Agreed.
feature that's like probably the most requested out of everything I've heard from people in like the community. It's always like armory, and some sort of like build swapping and whatever, right? And I guess you're gonna get it very soon. So this is my expectation. So we'll find
One
out.
of the interviews, they were like heavily like, well, you know, I can't talk about stuff, but we would love to do an armory. So I was assuming it's coming with the expansion, was the way I read that.
Yeah, maybe
Actually,
it's the
also
expansion.
Sorry,
Yeah?
Woody. I also really like what you said. At this point, basically, it's literally same cost as swapping it manually, but not having to do it manually. Probably the fairest thing,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and it also is
Someone
going to
says
automatically
import build
swap in
button,
your-
man. That would be
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Right from the
of course,
macro
yeah.
build plan.
right from the Maxwell page. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
Oh
that would
man.
be ideal, of course.
Just like
I mean-
bing, you have like all the aspects already. You have the paragon, boom, it's there. Easy, yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like that's maybe a bridge too far gone. That's all the way, dude.
No, man, I would totally import Kronos's town build. from
Wait,
his
is that a
planner, I'm
thing?
telling
Is that
you.
a thing in WoW? People saying WoW?
Yeah, you can do that. You
What?
literally, at all the talent setup, you have like the same thing we do with the Paragon board import when you copy it. You do the same thing with talent trees in World of Warcraft.
That
I
is
mean,
insane, man. What?
There's so much
That is
easy-
nuts. What?
But
I
they're
didn't know
so much easier now. They're so much easier now. It's not like when you have like classic or TBC in mind. It's literally just a selection of
Yeah,
three
I know how to
in a row
work,
and then
but
right.
it's crazy that they
Not that
allow people to
complicated.
do that, especially since it's simplified. Well,
yeah.
Like-
So the leveling's
can.
faster. You can import the build. We just need an auto battler that just plays the game for you. You just go to Helltide, hit the AFK as a minion, Necro, import
Bro.
the build. There you go.
I can tell you a few websites about that.
Uh-oh.
Oh man. No.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I guess the armory would be nice one for sure, but we'll see. Any other features?
That would be great.
I don't like anything else
I'm
that we really have, like, you know, a
More
design.
classes. Paladin. Where's our
Paladin.
Paladin, baby?
What is
Give
the
me a
new class?
I need a class with a shield where I can stack block chance, please.
Amen.
Yeah, it's crazy,
Andy.
man. No shields other than Necro, right? It's like, ugh. Why is
I'm
that?
loving my shield, but I can't stack my block chance. I'm just hoping here 1 in 5. Oh god, please. Please, I'm hiding behind my shield. I'm like, please don't hit me. But yeah, 20% is not enough. I need to scale it for some downside and off offensive. Something like that. I would love that.
And mounts that aren't horses. Give us spider or a
Mm.
maggot mount. Literally anything. If I have to get like another like purple
A maggot
fusion
mount.
horse or whatever the fuck, give me literally anything else that's not a horse, bro.
Lilith.
Got to. Yeah, we all would do that. Absolutely.
I
The,
might
with
Now,
the floating
which-
one.
Which version of Lilith? Yes.
Phase 2 Lilith would be a sick mount, actually.
Okay. Right on the shoulders.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With the low tail. Perfect.
Yeah, and you see that, and like you go to Kyovashad, and you see like a million of those. Everyone
Yeah,
is
and you get
flying
the
on
you
Lilith.
get the emote that does the 3 lines for like dashes,
God.
and then that's its attack for like dashes with the 3-line attack, and that's your move. Be sick.
I'd
Oh,
be
man.
running around. Halt.
Right.
Hold.
It's gonna be part of the Lilith mount for sure. It's just every so often it just goes off randomly.
I mean, hey, you can be Lilith in Call of Duty with an AK-47, so why not, bro?
Oh yeah, true. Actually.
Oh man.
This
All
is
right.
fun.
Anyway, so I think that also wraps out our podcast here. So we actually went way over the 2 hours that I had anticipated, as always. So sorry about that. But I think we should wrap it up. It was a really fun discussion, guys. So thanks for joining. Is there any last words? Any final thoughts or anything? Like, what if you have anything to share? Otherwise, I hope that well, everyone in chat liked it as well, and here on YouTube, and for people that watch it later. Yeah, for season 4 podcast, you might make more of those. But those were Path of Microtransaction, Dark Side, and Chronics. And I had a really good time. Hope you too. Want to give an outro, guys?
Thank you guys. I
Thanks.
had a lot of fun.
Thank
That was awesome.
GG's.
GG's.
Thanks for the invite. And Dioxide didn't get to hear it because he DC'd Rise of Set, but I like your shirt.
thank
You
you.
froze right as I was saying it. So
People
But,
ask me why I don't. Yeah, people ask me why I don't play hardcore more often, and you kind of got a glimpse of why I can't
Oh,
even stay
yeah.
on the podcast connected. Nah, but yeah, thanks, man.
all right, boys.
All right.
Thanks for inviting me on. Have a great day, everybody.
All right.
you,
Have a
guys.
great day, guys.
Peace.
Cheers.